Hello there and good morning. It is 7 a.m. and on today's programme, Reform or Die, the Prime Minister's message for the NHS ahead of a major announcement this morning on the future of the service.
But two senior Labour MPs have told Sky News that Sir Keir Starmer could be gone within months after a day of tears and recriminations in the House of Commons.
It is Thursday, the 3rd of July. Sir Keir Starmer promises a seismic shift for the NHS. We're going to speak to the Health Secretary very soon. Downing Street denies the Chancellor is on her way out after tears in the Commons raise big questions for Labour. We've got a special report on a cheap synthetic drug that is wrecking lives in West Africa's poorest communities. Sean Diddy Combs is denied bail as he awaits sentencing on 2 counts of transportation to commit prostitution. And Emma Raducanu into the 3rd round at Wimbledon. Next up, the world #1, Aryna Sabalenka. Good morning. Thanks for being with us. A busy day ahead. The Prime Minister has warned the NHS must reform or die. Sir Keir Starmer will make one of the most important announcements of his premiership this morning when he unveils the government's 10-year plan for the future of the service in England. But it comes against a backdrop of tears and recriminations and questions over both the Chancellor's future and his own. 2 senior Labour MPs have told Sky News that he could be gone in months. Well, we're going to speak to Mari about that in just a moment. But first, let's look at what's being announced this morning. 200 new neighbourhood health centres are going to be opened all around the country. The NHS will train thousands more family doctors who will see patients at home. And new technology is to be rolled out to help GPs become less reliant on paperwork.
So this shift's really important, not just for the future of the NHS, but given the demographics, it's really important for people and their families and their community support, etc., to have a model that is built on a default of hospitalisation. It's not right for them. Hospitals will, quite rightly, they're set up to investigate, to test, to treat things that in a community setting, primary care doctors, for example, and community teams are naturally trained to be less interventionist. And for an ageing population, and especially for the frail elderly segment of our population, this is really important.
All right, let's bring in our health correspondent, Laura Bundock, for more on this. Morning to you, Laura. So what more can we expect to hear from the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary?
Well, a very good morning from Heathcote Medical Practice in Woking, where in about an hour's time, the phones here will be ringing as patients scramble to try and get that 8 o'clock in the morning appointment with a GP. Like all practices across the country, they are feeling the pressure. This today will be the announcement of the government's long-awaited 10-year plan for health, which the Prime Minister is expected to say will fundamentally rewire the NHS. The idea is to bring services out of hospitals and into the community. Now, here at this GP service, they are busy. There is a community hospital nearby, and it is the merging of these sorts of services that we're expected to see. So we're going to see the creation of neighbourhood health centres, the idea being you take patients out of hospitals and provide those services closer to home in the community. The hope is by 2035, the majority of outpatient appointments can be seen in the community. So we're talking about things like scans, some tests, some mental health services, other services as well. So under one roof, you will see doctors, you'll see nurses, you'll see pharmacists, you'll see social workers working together. And that means that the hospital setting will be for the acute patients, for acute treatments. That's how it's going to work in practice. Like I say, as part of this big 10-year plan being announced later today. But many are questioning, how is this going to be paid for? Where are the staff going to come from? And are you just robbing Peter to pay Paul? There'll be more details obviously announced a little bit later this morning. And many health bodies are saying the devil really will be in the detail when it comes to this ambitious new plan.
Indeed. All right, Laura, for now, appreciate that. Put some of those questions as well to the Health Secretary when he pops up. It's about 10:15 7. Well, let's get the thoughts of Mari now, not on that NHS plan, despite the fact we'd love to talk about and the political implications of that, Mari, but what happened in the Commons yesterday and the future of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves?
Yeah, I mean, it was an extraordinary 45 minutes in the House of Commons yesterday. And essentially for anyone who wasn't aware or hasn't been catching up on it, essentially Rachel Reeves was in the House of Commons behind the Prime Minister during PMQs, and the entire 45 minutes she was appearing to be upset and crying. Now, what we've had is Kemi Badenoch at the dispatch box asked the Prime Minister whether he still backed the Chancellor, whether she was still going to be in post, and he didn't answer the question, and that really caused a lot of problems. Rachel Reeves then continued to cry after that, and then the market started to react quite jittery to that. So the price of borrowing went up, the pound then fell in value, because there was more speculation that perhaps she'd been sacked or was going to be sacked, and the fact that the PM didn't right there and then at the dispatch box back her, I think a lot of people felt that was a massive mistake. Then they tried to do a bit of a clean-up operation. So then Number 10 spokesperson, the PM spokesperson, came out and said she wasn't going anywhere, they had full backing from her, that she was still going to be in post. Then the Chancellor's spokesperson came out and said that it was a personal matter that she was crying about, not a professional issue. However, the difficulty now is that people are asking themselves, well, if it was a personal issue, why was she there in the first place? Why didn't she not go in the chamber in the first place? Why wasn't the opposition informed? These things do happen sometimes, and there's a way of dealing with them. And the other question then is what the PM now does in terms of not just, you know, the debacle that was in the House of Commons, but also the wider implications around the row on welfare and the fact that there is a, you know, at least £6 billion hole that they've got to fill in a couple of months' time in the autumn. Where are they going to find that cash from? Is it going to be tax rises? What kind of tax rises could we see? Pat McFadden yesterday saying things are going to have to be paid for some way or another.
Yep.
And so now Rachel Reeves is in a really unenviable position, not because she's been splashed across the front pages of her face, but because she's got money to find in a place where she really didn't think she was going to have to worry about that black hole.
Wonder where she's going to find it and how they'll be able to fund this NHS plan they're talking about today.
Yeah.
Mari, thank you for that. We'll speak to Wes Streeting about that and more at about 7:15 when the Health Secretary joins us. Now to New York City, and Sean Combs has been denied bail after being convicted of 2 prostitution-related offences following his landmark trial. He will stay in jail until he's sentenced in October. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner reports.
Let Puffy go! Let Puffy go!
Outside court calls for the immediate release of the man formerly known as Puff Daddy.
Seems like yesterday we used to rock the show.
Sean Diddy Combs, a music mogul who built his own brand, had been facing the possibility of life in prison.
Man, I'm so happy right now, man.
Instead, celebrations among his supporters as he's cleared of the most serious charges against him. Combs was still found guilty of transportation for prostitution.
It's not a party till we're all here.
Not that you'd know it from the ecstatic reaction of his defence team, including lead lawyer Mark Agnifilo. Sean Combs was found guilty of 2 federal crimes, yet this feels like a victory tour. Is that how it feels for you?
It feels good. It feels good. So thank you all for coming.
How does he feel, sir? How is Mr. Combs feeling?
Okay. All right.
Does he think he'll be free within the next few years? Will Sean Combs be giving you a bonus, sir? Cassie Ventura, Combs' former girlfriend, had been the star witness. The prosecution said Diddy forced her into partaking in so-called freak-offs, drug-fuelled sex sessions with male prostitutes. The jury watched this video of Combs beating Cassie viciously in a hotel corridor, but crucially found him not guilty of sex trafficking or racketeering. As the verdict was read out, Combs slid to his knees, clasping his chair. In the background, his lead defence lawyers hold each other tightly. Sean Combs' children have been in court for the past 7 weeks, hearing graphic details of their father's sex life. Their support, though, has remained steadfast. But they won't be seeing him as a free man anytime soon. the judge rejecting a bail application, a consolation prize for Cassie's lawyer.
We're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes.
Combs, though, as a first-time offender, is unlikely to face anything close to the maximum sentence of 20 years for his crimes. He sees this as a win.
He absolutely sees this as a win. And you see it in the body language, in the way he's clapping with his children, in the way that he will get a sentence where he can envision the day when he goes home to hug his children.
The verdict, say women's rights groups, is a setback for the Me Too movement. But Combs's defence maintained that his sexual relations had always been consensual.
This is your freedom here!
It's a case which has provoked passion on both sides, the sentencing likely to be just as divisive. Martha Kellner, Sky News, New York.
All right, let's take a look at some of the day's other top stories now. And 4 people have been charged after £7 million worth of damage was caused to 2 planes during a break-in at RAF Brize Norton last month. The incident was claimed by activist group Palestine Action, who MPs have prescribed as a terrorist organisation. Greater Manchester Police has been warned it has lost the trust and confidence of victims of grooming gangs. A report by the police watchdog has found the force has significantly improved its approach to child sexual exploitation investigations, but says there's work still to be done. At least 4 people have died after a ferry sank off the coast of Indonesia. 38 people are still missing. The vessel had left Ketapang in East Java late on Wednesday and went down within 30 minutes of leaving port. More than 100,000 motorists have been left unable to drive their cars due to a potentially lethal fault with airbags. Stellantis said people should stop using their versions of the Citroën C3 and DS3 until the issue has been fixed. Now, a new drug is devastating lives across West Africa, and the UK is thought to be one of its main sources. Kush is highly addictive, but also affordable, making it irresistible to people living in desperate poverty. Well, the drug has gripped communities all across the region, as our Africa correspondent Yusra El-Bagir found out. She's spoken to many at the epicentre of the crisis in Sierra Leone, and a warning. Yusra's report does show people suffering from malnutrition and with sores.
It's a temporary escape with a brutal come down.
Kush looks like marijuana, but can be 25 times stronger than fentanyl, making zombies out of men and women in Sierra Leone. This synthetic drug is creating an underworld in plain sight and rapidly spreading across West Africa.
It's suffering, but all the thing we tell you now, we need help. All is it, we need help. We need help.
The conditions of the people here are as haunting as their home, a den of deprivation and disease.
There's this shared sense of pain and entrapment, and everyone coming in and out is connected through their addiction to Kush. And they've all told us that they want to quit, but as long as they stay here, they'll never break free.
Elizabeth is 24 years old and pregnant with her second child, but can't bring herself to give up Kush as long as she stays here.
Elizabeth, does it feel like a risk to smoke Kush while you're pregnant? Why are you taking the risk?
I keep smoking it because it makes me forget about my worries and challenges.
The numbness of the high has worn off, and she can't hold back her pain. These are not the fringes of Freetown, but a place for people of all ages, caught in the clutches of Kush.
This drug is evil. This drug is bad. I don't know why they gave me this drug in this country.
But where is Kush coming from? This container has come from a high-risk import country to Freetown's port. Shipments from the UK, EU, and South America need to be searched for kush ingredients.
To be kush.
And this one fits the bill.
The initial testing shows that they are kush items, as well as acetone, which are also used in the processing of kush.
And where have they been shipped from?
They've been shipped from the United Kingdom.
The UK is part of a transnational kush trade that is sending teenagers to seek shelter among these shacks, to heal from sores eating away at their limbs from smoking the drug. Some are paralyzed by infection and malnutrition, lying in stalls where others have died before. The rest are debilitated.
Does it hurt?
Abu Bakr is only 14 years old and was handed his first kush joint at 12. He's been fighting for his life ever since.
When was the last time you walked?
Long time.
Are they still smoking kush?
Yeah, I hope say they still smoke.
Even with all this pain and
all this pain wouldn't get out, and still smoke.
It's a prison with an open door and a captor that has stripped them of everything they need to survive. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News, Sierra Leone.
And if you would like to see Yusra's full report, you can find it on our website at skynews.com, or you can scan that QR code that you see on screen right now. Well, a report into grooming gangs says that Greater Manchester Police has made significant improvement in how it investigates them. But the document, which has been published today, also says that the force has lost the trust and confidence of some victims. Well, let's bring in our home editor, Jason Farrell. Jason, morning to you. So what does this report have to say? Why was it brought in? And what are the police saying about it?
Well, there's been a lot of focus on grooming gangs, hasn't there? But particularly in Greater Manchester and with Greater Manchester Police, a lot of historic failings. And I've been here for 3 previous very highly critical reports into Greater Manchester Police, where Steve Watson, Chief Constable, last year had to apologise to victims for the failings. This report, however, is a glowing report. It says that the force has made significant improvements into how it understands and investigates child sexual exploitation. It's looking at recent cases and how it's dealing with recent cases and how it's dealing with those historic victims as well. It has set up a specialist department in 2021, and that, the inspectorate says, is serving victims better. It's better at getting prosecutions. It talks about resourcing and management, and I think crucially a cultural shift within the force. They now have 300 officers dedicated to looking into child sexual exploitation. At the time of the inspection, they were dealing with 714 victims and over 1,000 perpetrators that they were investigating. And look, I've stood here and talked about critical reports. We've done our own investigations that have criticised Greater Manchester Police, and I could point to some of the lessons to learn in this report, but that wouldn't be a fair reflection. This is a very positive report talking about real change that is being made within Greater Manchester Police. There will be critics. I've spoken to Maggie Oliver, who has criticised the force many times and isn't entirely happy with this report, partly because there were 2 investigators who actually resigned because they couldn't get access, who were initially doing this report. They couldn't get access to the details they wanted, and that's why it was handed over to the police inspectorate. But the police inspectorate are critical when they find failings in forces, and this report doesn't find those failings. In fact, it says, in one section, which I thought was striking, it says, as far as we're aware, Greater Manchester Police is the only force in the country to have dedicated a major incident team for investigating child sexual exploitation. And this level of resources dedicated to investigating non-recent cases. So in the heat of all the criticism that they've had over the last few years, perhaps they have made those improvements, and even there are things here now that Greater Manchester Force are doing that other forces could learn from.
Jason, for now in Manchester, thank you for that. And actually, we're going to be back in Manchester around about 8 o'clock, where there is going to be a news conference from representatives of the city and the police force all about that report into how Greater Manchester Police has dealt with the grooming gangs within the force area. And let's take a look at the front pages, some of them at least, of this morning's newspapers now. We'll start with the Metro, which has that picture of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, crying in the Commons chamber yesterday. The headline, Tears and Jeers for Starmer. Well, the Sun says that just before the tears, the Chancellor had said to her colleagues, "I am under so much pressure." Well, the Eye suggests her future in number 11 could be in doubt. OK, let's bring in the Secretary of State for Health, Mr. Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting, thank you very much for being with us this morning, and good morning to you. Of course, I am going to talk to you, Wes, about the 10-year plan for the NHS, but I must begin by talking to you about what we saw in the Commons yesterday from the Chancellor of the Exchequer. First, on the Chancellor, is she OK? Have you spoken to her?
She is OK. I've been in touch with her. And look, as politicians, we're all human beings. I think lots of people watching will think of times where we've had things going on in our lives. And just because you happen to walk through the door at work doesn't mean you leave all of those problems behind at the door. What makes us different is that we're so often not just at work, we're also on show. But, you know, she is a tough character, she's resilient, and she'll bounce back. People have seen in Rachel's leadership for the last 12 months the strength, the judgment and the grit of someone who has created the conditions for interest rates to fall 4 times, for wages to finally rise faster than the cost of living, and also the fastest growing economy in the G7. There's still so much more to do, but we have in Rachel someone who will lead our economy from strength to strength, support family finances to go from strength to strength, and back British business as well, so that we get British business going from strength to strength too. And that's exactly what you're going to see for many years to come.
Mr. Streeting, it was an extraordinary moment, as you know. I'm glad to hear you say that she is OK. If it was a personal matter, the question is, why was she in the chamber at all?
Well, it is what it is. I'm not going to get into it any more than I already have. I'm not sure there's much more to say about it, you know, except that which I've already said. OK. Secretary of State, you'll know those questions will remain, and I don't want to pry into the personal issues of it, but the question now remains, of course, as she was so visibly upset. The tears seemed to start rolling when a question was put to the Prime Minister as to whether or not she will be in a job, in that job, come the next election. Will she be? Of course she will, and be in no doubt that the election victory that was won only a year ago was built on not just the fact that Keir Starmer, as leader of the Labour Party, had changed the party so that we would be given permission to change the country. It was also built on the bedrock of the reputation that Rachel Reeves built as Shadow Chancellor, the reputation she rehabilitated for the Labour Party of being able to be trusted with the public finances. And as all of Rachel's colleagues in the Cabinet know, which is one of the reasons why she has such strong support across the Cabinet, the strength of Rachel isn't just the judgments she applies where she says yes, but perhaps even more importantly, those judgments where she says no. Because you need someone in that office who has the experience, the judgment, and the strength to make not always the easy choices, not always the popular choices, but the right choices to get our economy growing. And you see that reflected in the record of Rachel in her first 12 months as Chancellor. And just to knock this issue on the head, Rachel Reeves as Chancellor is here to stay. We need her to get the economy from strength to strength, to make sure that family finances are in better health than they were when we came to office, and to make sure that British business can go from strength to strength. Because if you get the economy growing, everything else becomes so much easier for our country, whether that's investing more in our public services to modernise and reform them for the 21st century, or to put more money back into the pockets of hard-pressed Brits. That's what Rachel will do for many years to come.
Secretary of State, Deputy Political Editor Sam Coates, there's 2 senior Labour MPs suggesting the Prime Minister could have to go within months. You've said the Chancellor is safe, fulsome in your defence of that. What about the Prime Minister?
Of course, look, Keir Starmer has been consistently underestimated, and I wonder when people will learn. They said he couldn't win the Labour leadership, but he did. They said he couldn't change the Labour Party, but he did. They said he couldn't take the Labour Party from its worst defeat since the 1930s to election victory last year, and he did. And now the cynics say he can't change the country, but he will. And today's launch of the 10-year plan for health is just one of many examples of the reform we will be leading here at home to modernise our public services, to make sure that everyone in our country, whoever they are, whatever their background, has the same opportunity and security in life as those from the most privileged backgrounds. That is the driving purpose of the Prime Minister and the government that he leads.
You talk about the economic credibility that's been brought by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. We've seen what happened this week with the rollback of those welfare reforms, which has put a £1 billion hole in the Labour Party's plans, a hole that you guys have put there by your decisions to roll back on that and on the winter fuel payments. So how are you going to pay for this 10-year renewal of the NHS?
Well, the 10-year plan that the Prime Minister and I are launching today is backed by investment, £29 billion a year over the course of this spending review, matched with reform. Because we know that in order for the NHS not just to survive but thrive, to be there for everyone when they need it, to drive better health and better outcomes in our country, we need to reform the NHS. And that's why today's 10-year plan it will build the NHS as a neighbourhood health service as much as a national health service, care closer to people's homes as well as in people's homes. A new generation of neighbourhood health centres that will bring more services under one roof, particularly important for those people especially living in rural and coastal communities where the hospitals are longer drive away with poor public transport. Having those sorts of facilities under one roof, bringing back the family doctor, more diagnostic tests and scans where you live, access to a wider range of support, including dietitians and physiotherapists, that will make a really big difference to where people live. And alongside that, more ease and convenience, more choice and control, making sure that the NHS keeps up with trends we've seen in other services across the country, so that people feel as patients that they are in control, that care is designed around them. And finally, the big game-changing opportunity we have for our country, the revolution in life sciences and medical technology. We're going to make sure the NHS isn't just benefiting from that revolution, but leading that revolution, so people have access to cutting-edge treatments and technologies, but also we reform the way the NHS works so that every penny of taxpayers' money that goes in is well spent. We liberate staff from the drudgery and toil of basic administrative tasks. We save hundreds of millions of pounds a year by not putting loads of letters in the post that arrive after the appointment. One of just many examples of how we're going to get our NHS not just back on its feet, but fit for the future, there for all of us when we need it.
One of the things that was trailed last week or so was that you're going to have a sort of a pay-for-performance trial, Mr. Streeting, where patients are going to be contacted by the hospital after they have finished their treatment, and as to rate their care, hospitals will then be paid depending on what the patient says. Where's this been trialled before, and how do you know that's going to work?
Well, that's exactly why it's a trial. It's going to be a completely different way of making sure the patient is calling the shots, that the NHS is more responsive to patient care. Because when the NHS was founded 77 years ago, my Labour predecessor, Nye Bevans, said that it would put a megaphone up to the mouth of every patient. But the truth is, the NHS hasn't always been good at listening. Too often it expects the patient to work around the NHS rather than the NHS delivering care around the needs of the patient. And thanks to that revolution in life sciences and medical technology I described, there's a future available to us where we not only diagnose earlier and treat faster, but where we're able to predict and prevent illness, where we're able to provide much more personalised care for the patient, so people receive an individual personalised service. Now, people who can afford to pay for private healthcare are already enjoying such ease and convenience. They're already enjoying such personalised service. But the principle of the NHS, when it was founded all those years ago, is that healthcare should be available to all on the basis of need and not the ability to pay. And it's our determination to make sure that that equitable principle not only survives but thrives in the 21st century, that sits at the heart of the plan, where patient finally has the power, where patient is king or queen in the service. And if patients don't get the right care, they don't just fill out a complaint form that goes into nowhere, where they don't really feel anyone listens. They can actually apply a bit of bite by saying, actually, I'm withholding a bit of the payment you would have received for my care.
When's the trial
going to
run
go
until?
into an NHS improvement fund instead.
Secretary of State.
We'll start rolling it out. We'll start rolling it out over the course of this Parliament. We'll see how the trial works, through that process, and then we'll decide whether to roll it out more widely across the NHS and make it a permanent feature. My goal is to make sure that every patient, whoever they are, whatever their background, receives high-quality personal care for them. And I'm afraid to say, I've sat around the table in my office in the last year with far too many victims of some of the worst NHS scandals, where not only have patients been failed, losing lives, limbs, loved ones, they've not only been failed, but then they have been let down, lied to, dismissed and ignored. And I've been very clear, I'm not going to tolerate that culture of cover-up. I'm not going to tolerate an NHS that puts protecting its own reputation above protecting patients. And that's one of many reasons why, in the 10-year plan for health, patient power runs like a golden thread throughout the entire plan, so that the NHS is genuinely there for us, and we can be proud of the NHS and what it does for us in every case, not just in the exceptional cases.
All right, Secretary of State, we're going to have to let you go there, because I know you've got other interviews to do. Wes Street,
good to talk to you.
Thanks for being with us. Good morning to you.
Thank you.
All right, still to come on the breakfast programme. We'll discuss the latest incarnation of Superman, as the film's premiere was held in London last night.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Hello and welcome back. Now, just a moment ago, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, told us that he has spoken to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. He said that she was OK and here to stay. Well, Mari is with us for more on this. Mari, what did you make of what Mr Streeting had to say?
So, I found that really interesting. Clearly, Wes Streeting was very, very eager to try and clear up as much of the confusion or speculation around what happened yesterday. So he did give us some clarity. He was very, very clear that Rachel Reeves is here to stay. He said she's going to be here until the next general election. And he said the same about the Prime Minister. So I think that was really helpful. It sounds silly, but it was actually really helpful because we've had mixed messages over the past 24 hours. So we needed just a little bit of clarity, and clearly that was his mission this morning. He then talks about how Rachel Reeves is tough, she's resilient, she'll bounce back, and that he's in touch with her and that she's OK. So that was a kind of a health check, let's say, on the Chancellor. Very useful. What was perhaps less useful was when you asked him around the fact that if actually this was a personal issue, why was she in the chamber in the first place? He just said it is what it is. That's not an answer.
It's not. It was a way of shutting it down. He didn't want me to ask him it again, right?
He didn't want to ask, he didn't want to answer it, he didn't want to get into it. And I think that, to me, signals that perhaps not all is not quite well, let's just say, because that doesn't seem like an answer, and he surely would have been prepared and expecting a question like that. So that's something that I found a little bit odd, but nonetheless. And then he was trying to kind of big Rachel Reeves up, wasn't he? So he was talking about how we need her in the job. He said we need her to get the economy from strength to strength. He talked about how the plan for change we keep hearing was built on Rachel Reeves' reputation for being responsible with the public finances. And to an extent, trying to show that the government is kind of putting its arms around Rachel Reeves, backing her, bigging her up, and also to an extent, really reassuring the markets she's not going anywhere, we back her, we are still committed to her way of thinking in terms of perhaps slightly more conservative fiscally than some of those Labour MPs that we saw rebelling earlier in the week perhaps would like. And so really trying to reassure the markets that they're not going to just have this lurch over to the left all of a sudden.
I wonder what would have happened had those tears led to a real collapse in the markets. And it wasn't the fact that, there was fear that she was going to go. It was fear that, she was there and she wasn't in control. I wonder how they would have responded at that point, because the market reaction was maybe felt slightly counterintuitive, didn't it?
I think we'll never know. I think really, realistically, we'll never know a hypothetical about what the markets could have or should have done. I think clearly the markets wanted to see a level of stability. That's what they like. No matter what the government is, they like stability. And the fact that there was a wobble, the fact that there was speculation about her role, how safe she was in her role, and therefore who might come in next, and what kind of economic policy that would then ensue, I think caused that wobble, as it were.
OK, Mari, more from you later this morning. Thank you for that. Well, the Princess of Wales has opened up about her cancer recovery, describing it as a roller coaster as she visited with patients and staff at a hospital in Colchester. She announced that she was in remission last January after being diagnosed in March of last year and is undergoing chemotherapy. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills joined the Princess and sent us this.
Most people didn't know that she was coming. The Princess turning heads as she arrived in Colchester, wanting to hear more about their cancer wellbeing centre, but also make sure that we heard a few things about how she's feeling in recovery.
We put on sort of brave-faced stoicism through treatment. Treatment's done.
Yes.
So I can crack on and get back to normal again. But actually, the phase afterwards is really, is a really difficult journey. You're not necessarily in the clinical team any longer, but you're not able to function normally at home as you perhaps once used to.
While we have got used to a new level of openness from Kate, being this personal on a public visit is still unusual. But clearly, among other patients and volunteers, she felt safe.
But it's life-changing, whether for anyone through, whether from the first diagnosis or since post-treatment and things like that, it is a life-changing experience for both the individual and the patient, but also families as well. And actually, it sometimes goes sort of unrecognised. I think you don't necessarily, particularly if it's the first time, you don't appreciate how much impact it is going to have. And actually, you have to find your new normal. Yes. And that takes time. And it's a road trip. It's not one smooth sail, which you expect it to be. But the reality is, it's not. You're going through hard times.
Her words feel particularly strong coming 2 weeks after she didn't go to Royal Ascot and all of the reporting around that. The palace insisting at the time that there was always going to have to be some flexibility around the engagements that she does now. But this is the first time that we've heard from her that there are some days where she can't do what she used to. Getting her hands dirty still wasn't a problem. Planting roses named after her in the centre's garden. Just how important mind, body and spirit are for recovery is her big message right now.
Very nice to meet you. What's your name?
But also you could hear a subtle plea for maybe more understanding for her and her family and others going through difficult times. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News in Colchester.
Now, the stars of the new Superman film were in London last night for the premiere. As you can see, we've been joined by our arts and entertainment reporter, Debbie Ridgard, and Mari's here too, because you love Superman.
Why not?
Of course, let's talk about the movie. So, Debbie, you were down there on the red carpet.
Yeah, I got to go
How was it?
last night. This has been a massive world tour for them. It's the launch of James Gunn's entry into the DC universe. And it is just a bit mad when you get to see any of the superhero films that, make their entrance into the world. So this one is obviously Superman 2025. Mm-hmm. It's all about the modern world, which is an interesting take on Superman at the start. Because, when we see him, Clark Kent is a print journalist. Mm-hmm. Not very modern, let's just say. So that's where the actual initial thing is, where they bring it in of what happens to a journalist now in this day of social media. They're the kind of things that they're starting to play with, as well as that, some flying dogs. We've got...
Super Dog's in it.
Yes, Super Dog is in it. I love that you know.
I'm a bit nerd at heart, man.
Let's have a quick look at the trailer, will we?
You'd let me interview you as Superman.
Sure.
Ready? Recently, you've come under a lot of fire for what some might... Today, the Secretary of Defense said he was going to look into your actions.
A war.
All right, so there's a bit of the trailer, Debbie. They're throwing him. So it's got that classic where they turn against the man from outer space type vibe to it. It's a new man playing Clark Kent, Superman, David Corenswet. I've never heard of him before.
You're very interested in this. You're like, I'm ready to watch it.
Honestly.
Gasping when somebody threw a ball at his head. I love the investment, the emotion.
When they get Superman, superhero movies right, they can be excellent.
Absolutely.
But they more often than not get them wrong, which is upsetting. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this if it can live up to expectations. Anyway, David Corenswet, the actor.
David Corenswet, he looks a lot more like the Christopher Reeve Superman that we had seen back in the 70s and 80s. But yeah, he's kind of the return to it. He also actually studied in Juilliard, just like Christopher Reeve as well. But so he's classically trained, 6'5". He's a bit of a fresh face when it comes to the cinematic universe and the film industry as a whole. But yeah, I got to speak to him yesterday, and I asked how he feels about seeing himself as Superman.
I just disassociate. It's a different guy up on the screen. I'm just a fan on my couch at home, excited to watch it.
You spoke previously about being like it was hard to think of the idea of filling the boots and the confidence of Superman. Do you feel like you've filled those boots now?
Well, no, luckily I'm able to hang the boots up and leave them until we get to make another movie. but it's certainly great having such great support from James and from the rest of our cast. And now feeling the reception of the film, it certainly boosts one's confidence.
The trailer doesn't look too bad, actually.
It looks good, but the only part that I'm a little bit suspicious about is a lot of times with these, we get to watch the film a few days beforehand, maybe a week beforehand of this premiere.
Yeah.
This case, we didn't get to watch
I was
it.
going to ask you what you thought of it. No, you haven't.
We didn't get to watch it. Now, that's where my red flags start raising up, because I'm like, either it's going to be absolutely brilliant and they want to avoid a load of spoilers, or it's terrible and they don't want us to talk about it.
Are you going to be going to the movies to catch this?
I mean, if it's good, I mean, I think I'll find out.
Wait for the review.
And Kamali, he'll be first in line.
Possibly. If you get me tickets. You get me tickets, I like to pay for these things. It looks, I mean, look, the trailer looks pretty good. I don't know if they give too much away. You can see some of the storylines in it already, but
I love stories about journalists. There are so many great stories about journalists. Superman, Bridget Jones, you know, often we're at the centre of brilliant stories. And obviously,
and sometimes in Clark Kent's case, we do wear capes.
And this is the thing, you get to throw in superhero powers on top of it all. And the whole idea of Lois Lane and Clark Kent is apparently they have different journalistic styles. Yes. And so this film is all about their clashing together. And it's going to be interesting.
Who plays Lois Lane? Is that?
Yeah, we've got Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, and we also have Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, who he originally auditioned for Superman at the exact same time as David Corenswet, went in for the screen tests and got the phone call being like, you didn't get Superman, but you actually can be the villain.
Here's the consolation prize, not too bad. All right, good. Well, thank you for that, Debbie. We look forward to it. It's out next week, I think, isn't it?
11th of July, yeah.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Murray, too. Still to come on The Breakfast Show. We'll hear from the Lioness Aggie Beaver-Jones ahead of England's opener against France on Saturday.
In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Thousands of Russians were drafted. For some, the reality of frontline warfare meant one thing: desertion.
I had a rush of adrenaline. There was a kind of treason.
But they did not escape on their own.
I help people to desert Russian army.
The stakes are high, but for some, there's no other option.
We keep going until Putin's regime is over.
Escaping Putin on Sky News.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
Tel Aviv's skyline and the familiar sounds of an Iranian salvo. This caught some off guard. It's perhaps part of a broader psychological strategy by Iran to make Israel look exposed.
This is the source of Hezbollah's fury, the aftermath of an assassination.
What happens here has the potential to reshape the Middle East. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting.
Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Welcome back. A bit of tennis now, and Emma Raducanu is into the third round of Wimbledon after a dominant display over the 2023 champion. It set up a big showdown with the world number one, Aryna Sabalenka. Emma Birchley has this.
For the British number one, there's no place like home. In front of an adoring centre court crowd, Emma Raducanu's power, precision and finesse was too much for the 2023 Wimbledon champion. A straight sets win over Marketa Vondrousova in just 82 minutes. Coming into the event, Raducanu had tried to temper expectations after a difficult grass court swing. It's clear the belief is back.
I think there's no better feeling than winning here at Wimbledon, winning on centre court. It's honestly, it makes everything worth it, and you forget about everything, all the ups and downs.
And she'll need every bit of it. Up next, top seed and three-time Grand Slam champion Aryna Sabalenka, who cruised through her second-round match in straight sets. Elsewhere, disappointment for Katie Boulter, beaten by Argentinian Solana Sierra in 3 sets. While in the men's draw, the world's number 733, Britain's Oliver Tarvett, introduced himself to the world with a sublime showing against defending champion Carlos Alcaraz. The 21-year-old university student, who'd never played on the main tour, going shot for shot with the Spaniard, ultimately losing in straight sets, but winning countless spans. Cam Norrie did make it through, however, battling back from 1 set down to beat 12th seed Francis Tiafoe. He'll be back on court on Friday, as will Emma Raducanu, as the nation watches to see if she can give the world number one a run for her money. Emma Birchley, Sky News.
Well, the Euros are now officially underway in Switzerland. England play this weekend against France on Saturday. Let's go to Zurich and bring in our sports correspondent, Rob Harris. Rob, you've been speaking to a former Lioness. Oh, he is there, I think. There he is.
Team base, the plush base on the outskirts of Zurich. They've now had their first training session, pretty hot, and I've been catching up with one of the players you might be less familiar with now, but you could well be hearing a lot more about in the coming weeks. Aggie Beever-Jones, she's just 21, but she's finished the season most recently as top scorer for Chelsea as they won the WSL. They won a treble, and she scored a hat-trick on her Wembley debut for England in April. And this is what the striker had to say to me. First training session, quite hot, the conditions.
Yeah, no, it's been boiling. I think we managed to get a good session in this morning, and yeah, we're extremely lucky to be in such an incredible hotel. It feels like a home away from home.
You've had a sensational couple of years, winning the treble then last season, or season that's just finished. What is it that you can bring to this team?
I love scoring goals, I love helping out where I can, and I know I would say to everyone that I'll work hard, and especially playing for England, it's one of the greatest honours and something that I'll never ever take for granted. The last time the Euros was happening, I was there at the final at Wembley with my family, and now to be in this position is definitely a full circle moment for me.
When you were at Wembley that day, did you think, I want to be there for the next Euros?
Yeah, of course, but I mean, whether I thought it was an actual possibility is a different story. And yeah, I'm a firm believer that you get these opportunities when you work hard. And I know for the past 3 years I've been working extremely hard, being at Chelsea and having Emma and Sonia. And yeah, I feel extremely lucky and privileged to kind of be here. And I'm just trying to soak it all in and can't really wipe the smile off my face.
Well, Rob, what did you make of what she had to say?
Oh,
sorry, Rob. Let me ask you a question first, and then you pick up. What did you make of what she had to say? And when do Wales get their tournament underway?
Well, Wales will also be in action on Saturday. So before England take on France in the same group, Wales are against the Netherlands. And they have had some encouraging news because their former captain, who is here, Sophie Ingle, Chelsea player alongside Beever-Jones, she missed all of last season with an ACL injury, but she says she is fit and ready to be part of this tournament despite not playing since last September. So Wales could certainly be relying on her. Tournament is underway. The hosts, Switzerland, did manage an opening goal in their match. The fan zone here in Zurich was absolutely packed, but then they did go on to lose 2-1 to Norway. And in the other game, Finland did beat Iceland 1-0. But certainly in the centre of Zurich, we were asking some questions yesterday about visibility of the tournament. In the section where the fan zone is, it was overflowing. There are fans eventually queuing to get in to watch the hosts underway at this tournament.
Yeah, we spoke to the Swiss ambassador, didn't we, yesterday, Rob, and he said that Switzerland can do more, they will do more, but was also quick to tell me how many tickets they had sold for the tournament, and they've reached really high levels. All right, we'll step away from Zurich. We'll have Rob back later on, but for now, let's take a look at the weather forecast for here.
The perfect climate, wherever the destination. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It'll be cooler and fresher and more unsettled as we get into the weekend. Mostly fine out now, but the northwest has some rain. That rain will spread across the north this morning, but it won't reach eastern Scotland till lunch. Meanwhile, England and Wales will be largely dry with sunny spells, while the south of Ireland can expect some heavy showers. It'll be warm for southern parts. Northern Britain can expect some rain through the afternoon with thundery downpours possible. Northeast Scotland looks most at risk of that. Elsewhere, the south will stay largely fine, while Ireland and Northern Ireland will turn drier and brighter from the west. The north is going to have spells of rain overnight, whereas southern parts will stay largely dry.
The perfect climate, whatever the forecast. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
We'll be back in the top of the next hour with more of the day's news, but Murray's joined us real quickly. I mean, look, West Streeting was fulsome in his defence. Is that going to put this all to bed, do we think?
No.
Absolutely not.
No. Yes, the government is showing that they're backing Rachel Reeves, showing that there is no issues here. It was a personal matter, nothing to see here. Let's all move on. I don't think people are going to move on. People want to know what's gone on. And more importantly, really, than Rachel Reeves crying in the chamber, people want to know what on earth went on with that welfare U-turn, how that was allowed to happen, and how it's going to be paid for.
Murray, more from you in the next hour. Do stay with us. We'll be back after this short break.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Hello and good morning. It is 8 a.m. and on today's show, reform or die, the Prime Minister's message for the NHS ahead of a major announcement this morning on the future of the service.
Plus, the Health Secretary tells this programme Rachel Reeves, as Chancellor, is here to stay. We'll speak to her counterpart, Mel Stride, in the next few minutes.
It is Thursday, the 3rd of July. Sir Keir Starmer promises a seismic shift to bring the NHS into the 21st century. The government denies the Chancellor is on her way out after tears in the Commons raise big questions for Labour.
To knock this issue on the head, Rachel Reeves as Chancellor is here to stay.
Also ahead, we've got a special report on the cheap synthetic drug wrecking lives in West Africa's poorest communities. And Sean Combs is denied bail as he awaits sentencing on 2 counts of transportation to commit prostitution. And Emma Raducanu into the 3rd round at Wimbledon. Up next, the world #1, Arina Sabalenka. Good morning and thank you for being with us. The Prime Minister has warned the NHS must reform or die. Sir Keir Starmer is going to make one of the most important announcements of his premiership later when he unveils the government's 10-year plan for the future of the service in England. But it all comes against a backdrop of tears, recriminations and questions over both the Chancellor's future as well as his own. 2 senior Labour MPs have told Sky News that he could be gone within months. Well, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has insisted earlier that Rachel Reeves is here to stay. We're going to speak to our political correspondent, Mari, about that in just a moment. But first, let's look at what is being announced on the NHS this morning. Well, 200 new neighbourhood health centres will be opened all around the country. The NHS is going to train thousands more family doctors who will see patients at home. And new technology will be rolled out to help GPs become less reliant on paperwork.
So this shift's really important, not just for the future of the NHS, but given the demographics, it's really important for people and their families and their community support, etc., to have a model that is built on a default of hospitalisation. It's not right for them. Hospitals will, quite rightly, they're set up to investigate, to test, to treat things that in a community setting, primary care doctors, for example, and community teams are naturally trained to be less interventionist. And for an ageing population, and especially for the frail elderly segment of our population, this is really important.
Well, let's bring in our health correspondent, Laura Bundock, for more on this. Laura, it looks as if you're at that GP surgery. What did you make of what we heard from the Health Secretary earlier, and what can we expect when the Prime Minister speaks a bit later?
There's a lot of interest here, certainly, for any announcement that's being made later on today. I'm at the beating heart now of Heathcote Medical Practice in Woking. What you can see behind me is the 8 o'clock rush as patients get in touch with the surgery here, needing a variety of services. So we've got patients calling in, around 300 calls are being made at the moment. They're all coming in thick and fast now, as well as about the same coming in online too. And that's where GPs are in their rooms going through those online engagements as well. Patients are being slowly triaged to try and figure out if they need the pharmacist, if they need a face-to-face appointment, if they need appointments in the future as well. It is busy here. They say the pressure is building. There's a lot of pressure on the services here, a lot of demand on the services. News of more GPs is certainly welcome, but there are questions about how all that is going to be funded. Now, under the new plans being announced by the government today, the idea is that services are going to be brought into the community. So what we're seeing here will form a very big part of these new community health centres, these neighbourhood health centres where we'll see under one roof, not just the GP services here, but we'll see the pharmacists, we'll see follow-up appointments after surgery, we'll see a range of scans available so people don't go to hospital, they can stay in their community by bringing the services closer to home. The idea is it takes the pressure off acute hospitals, which will be reserved for patients who have the acute emergencies underway. That is the plan. Lots of people, like I say here, are questioning, how is all this going to be funded? Who is going to staff these services? Where are these new centres going to be? And are you just robbing Peter to pay Paul by taking staff out of one bit of a hospital, bring them into the community? How is that going to work? So lots of questions. The devil, as always, many are saying, will be in the detail, and that's what we're going to be hearing a little bit later on when the Prime Minister makes this big announcement.
We will indeed. All right, Laura, for now, thank you for that. Well, Murray is with us as promised. Murray, look, we're going to get all the detail from the NHS plan later, as Laura says, from the Prime Minister. But just a little while ago, we spoke with the Health Secretary, and he was fulsome in his defence of Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, after what we saw yesterday in the Commons.
Yeah, exactly. So Wes Streeting wanted to kind of clear things up and give out a very, very clear message, which is Rachel Reeves isn't going anywhere, and neither is Keir Starmer. And clearly, his almost one mission this morning on the airwaves was to try and provide a bit of clarity and calm after quite a chaotic few hours, welfare U-turn aside, and to just kind of provide a bit of clarity and stability. I think we can have a listen to a short exchange between yourself and Wes Streeting where he tries to clear up any confusion.
One of the reasons why she has such strong support across the Cabinet, the strength of Rachel, isn't just the judgments she applies where she says yes, but perhaps even more importantly, those judgments where she says no. Because you need someone in that office who has the experience, the judgment and the strength to make not always the easy choices, not always the popular choices, but the right choices to get our economy growing. And you see that reflected in the record of Rachel in her first 12 months as Chancellor. And just to knock this issue on the head, Rachel Reeves as Chancellor is here to stay.
Unequivocal.
There you go.
That it then.
So he's trying to really kind of clear things up. You saw from that clip he was bigging her up. He was saying how valuable she is, why they need her, why, all the work she's done and all the work she's planning on doing, and how that essentially she is a pivotal part of that. That's what we're hearing from government at the moment, is that the PM and the Chancellor are in lockstep, that they are aligned and that there's no issues there.
But
the difficulty will be that the questions remain around exactly how that happened and how it was allowed to happen. You asked Wes Streeting if this was genuinely a personal issue, nothing to do with the welfare U-turn, nothing to do with the pressure she's under as Chancellor and the policy U-turn she's having to make when she doesn't really believe in them, perhaps, then why was she in the chamber in the first place? Normally with these kinds of things, if something is going on, either you don't go in, there are ways you can deal with this if it's a serious issue, or perhaps you inform the opposition of what's going on, so then Kemi Badenoch is not gunning for you at PMQs if she understands. Now, I've double-checked with the opposition this morning, and they absolutely were not aware of anything going on with Rachel Reeves ahead of time. So they weren't given any warning, which is clearly why Kemi Badenoch then went for it. And so this is why there's a lack of clarity still, I believe.
Interesting. Well, it's going to rumble on. I'm sure you'll be hitting the phones to try and find out as much as you can. Murray, for now, thank you very much for that. I just want to take you to Manchester for a moment. The Deputy Mayor, Kate Green, is holding a news conference. Ms Green speaking about the police watchdog's report into grooming gangs and how Greater Manchester Police handled them, and whether or not victims of grooming gangs have lost trust and confidence in the force. We'll keep an eye on the news conference as it continues. You can see it's well underway now, and we'll go back to it should we need to. If you want to watch it, you can scan that QR code that you see on the side of your screen right now and watch along. Now, let's take it to New York, where Sean Combs has been denied bail after he was convicted of 2 prostitution-related offences following his landmark trial. He will now stay in jail until he's sentenced in October. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has this.
Let Puffy go! Let Puffy go!
Outside court calls for the immediate release of the man formerly known as Puff Daddy.
Seems like yesterday we used to rock the show.
Sean Diddy Combs, a music mogul who built his own brand, had been facing the possibility of life in prison.
Man, I'm so happy right now, man.
Instead, celebrations among his supporters as he's cleared of the most serious charges against him. Combs was still found guilty of transportation for prostitution.
It's not a party till we're all here.
Not that you'd know it from the ecstatic reaction of his defence team, including lead lawyer Mark Agnifilo. Sean Combs was found guilty of 2 federal crimes, yet this feels like a victory tour. Is that how it feels for you?
It feels good. It feels good. So thank you all for coming.
How does he feel, sir? How is Mr. Combs feeling?
Okay.
Does he think he'll be free within the next few years? Will Sean Combs be giving you a bonus, sir? Cassie Ventura, Combs' former girlfriend, had been the star witness. The prosecution said Diddy forced her into partaking in so-called freak-offs, drug-fueled sex sessions with male prostitutes. The jury watched this video of Combs beating Cassie viciously in a hotel corridor, but crucially found him not guilty of sex trafficking or racketeering. As the verdict was read out, Combs slid to his knees, clasping his chair. In the background, his lead defence lawyers hold each other tightly. Sean Combs' children have been in court for the past 7 weeks, hearing graphic details of their father's sex life. Their support, though, has remained steadfast. But they won't be seeing him as a free man anytime soon. The judge rejecting a bail application, a consolation prize for Cassie's lawyer.
We're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes.
Combs, though, as a first-time offender, is unlikely to face anything close to the maximum sentence of 20 years for his crimes. He sees this as a win.
He absolutely sees this as a win. And you see it in the body language, in the way he's clapping with his children, in the way that he will get a sentence where he can envision the day when he goes home to hug his children.
The verdicts, say women's rights groups, is a setback for the Me Too movement. But Combs' defence maintained that his sexual relations had always been consensual.
This is your freedom here!
It's a case which has provoked passion on both sides, the sentencing likely to be just as divisive. Martha Kellner, Sky News, New York.
Right, let's take a look at some of the day's other top stories now, and 4 people have been charged after £7 million worth of damage was caused to 2 planes during a break-in at RAF Brize Norton last month. The incident was claimed by activists from Palestine Action, a group that has been proscribed as a terrorist organisation. At least 4 people have died after a ferry sank off the coast of Indonesia. 38 people are still missing. The vessel had left Ketapang in East Java late on Wednesday and went down within 30 minutes of leaving port. More than 100,000 motorists in the UK have been left unable to drive their cars due to a potentially lethal fault with their airbags. It's affecting Citroens, and that car maker's owner, Stellantis, said that people should stop using the Citroen C3 and the DS3 until their issue has been resolved. Now, a new drug devastating lives across West Africa is thought to have the UK as one of its main sources. Kush is highly addictive and affordable, which makes it irresistible to those living in poverty, desperate for any means of escape. Well, the drug has gripped communities all across the region. Our Africa correspondent, Yusuf El Bagir, has spoken to some at the centre of the crisis in Sierra Leone, and a warning. Yusuf's report shows people with malnutrition and with sores on their body.
It's a temporary escape with a brutal come down.
Kush looks like marijuana, but can be 25 times stronger than fentanyl, making zombies out of men and women in Sierra Leone. This synthetic drug is creating an underworld in plain sight and rapidly spreading across West Africa.
It's suffering, but all the thing we tell you now, we need help. All is it, we need help. We need help.
The conditions of the people here are as haunting as their home. a den of deprivation and disease.
There's this shared sense of pain and entrapment, and everyone coming in and out is connected through their addiction to Kush. And they've all told us that they want to quit, but as long as they stay here, they'll never break free.
Elizabeth is 24 years old and pregnant with her second child, but can't bring herself to give up Kush as long as she stays here.
Elizabeth, does it feel like a risk to smoke Kush while you're pregnant? Why are you taking the risk?
I keep smoking it because it makes me forget about my worries and challenges.
The numbness of the high has worn off, and she can't hold back her pain. These are not the fringes of Freetown, but a place for people of all ages, caught in the clutches of Kush.
This drug is evil. This drug is bad. I don't know why they gave me this drug in this country.
But where is Kush coming from? This container has come from a high-risk import country to Freetown's port. Shipments from the UK, EU, and South America need to be searched for Kush ingredients.
To be Kush.
And this one fits the bill.
The initial testing shows that there are Kush items as well as acetone, which are also used in the processing of Kush.
And where have they been shipped from?
They've been shipped from the United Kingdom.
The UK is part of a transnational Kush trade that is sending teenagers to seek shelter among these shacks, to heal from sores eating away at their limbs from smoking the drug. Some are paralyzed by infection and malnutrition, lying in stalls where others have died before. The rest are debilitated.
Does it hurt?
Abu Bakr is only 14 years old and was handed his first Kush joint at 12. He's been fighting for his life ever since.
When was the last time you walked?
I'm 10.
Are they still smoking Kush?
Yeah, opposite they still smoke.
Even with all this pain and
all this pain within that and still smoke.
It's a prison with an open door and a captor that has stripped them of everything they need to survive. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News, Sierra Leone.
And you can watch Yusra's full report on our website, skynews.com. I highly recommend you do so. Let's get the perspective now of the opposition. You can see we've been joined by the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, Mel Stride. Mel, morning to you. Thanks very much for being with us. I have to talk to you about what we saw in the Commons yesterday. It was an extraordinary moment. The Chancellor visibly upset. Have you been in touch? Have you spoken to her?
No, I haven't spoken to her. I sent her a message afterwards just to say that I felt for her. And that I hope that she was okay. I mean, it was very distressing to see it, actually. And, of course, I was just opposite her on the opposition benches. Yeah, a very difficult time for her.
Did you guys...
I hope she's okay.
We've been told it's a personal matter, as you will have seen from the Secretary of State for Health. Were you guys aware of what was going on?
No, I didn't know that she was as upset as she was until she came in and sat down on the bench opposite me. And it was immediately obvious. And... obviously quite upsetting to see it, actually.
I mean, obvious to you, perhaps, maybe not to the Leader of the Opposition. She was quite forceful on him when, you know, it was quite clear. Chris Philp was there jabbing his finger as well.
Well, she's there to hold the Prime Minister to account, and I think clearly it was right that Kemi pressed very hard on issues around the economy and the complete chaos that we've seen in the last 24 to 48 hours around the welfare bill.
But on a human level, I mean, you can see that she was really upset and crying. Maybe just pull back on that moment?
Well, I think she got that balance about right, because at the end of the day, she is there to say to Keir Starmer, look, there are very big, important things in play here. People's livelihoods, you know, their cost of living, you know, how prosperous people are feeling or otherwise. And yet we've got this government that is mismanaging the public finances. They've U-turned on winter fuel, which is an unfunded commitment of £1.25 billion. The U-turn now on welfare, another £4 billion plus. That's going to have to be paid for, and it's most likely to be paid for by higher taxes in the autumn. So the point that Kemi is rightly making is that, you know, it's hard-working people up and down this country who are already under quite a lot of pressure, who are going to ultimately pay the price of Labour's poor choices.
We've been told there will be financial consequences. Pat McFadden, sitting right where you are, told us that yesterday. We're not clear what those consequences will be. I wonder if you've had time to reflect on what we saw in the markets after the Chancellor was seen to be crying in the chamber. The pound and gilts looked... pound slumped and gilts went up as it looked as if she might be out. But that was just... Isn't that a sign that she's respected and trusted by the markets? They were scared that she wasn't going to be in the job anymore.
Yeah, it's a sign of the markets taking a view on how safe it is to lend to our country, what kind of risk premium they want to price in. And what they've seen is a government that's come in, taxed businesses up to the hilt, destroyed growth, borrowed a lot of money, spent a lot of money, driven up inflation, kept interest rates higher for longer than would otherwise have been the case, and is now piling up the debt burden on this country, the servicing costs on which, Kamali, is about £100 billion a year. That's twice what we spend on defence. And then we're now heading into the autumn, once again, under a government that has certainly blown all its fiscal headroom.
But Mel, you'll know that they didn't do all that in 1 year, did they? A lot of that was put in place by previous governments for 14 years.
We did go through a small matter of COVID, where we had to support millions of jobs up and down. Well, it shrank the economy by 10%, and most people at the time were saying that unemployment would go up to levels we'd never seen before in our country. So I think it's fair to say that that comes with a price, of course, of supporting the economy in that way. And we also supported the economy when inflation spiked around the Ukraine-Russia war. And we were right to have done that. It was £400 billion worth of support that the economy got at that time. The alternative would have been far worse.
Just on the markets again and the Chancellor, a fund manager at Fidelity said that investors were fearful that if she were replaced, there'd be greater risks for the government's fiscal rules, that they would be changed or ditched. And an ally of hers said that gilt investors see her as a bulwark against excessive government borrowing. So her remaining in place is good news for the markets.
Well, it's not good news for the markets that we've got the backdrop that we've got, which is a government that's lost control of the public finances, that has previously already blown its fiscal headroom against its targets, that is racking up unfunded spending commitments in the order of multiple billions, and is heading into the autumn quite probably now going to have to put up taxes. None of that's good. Now, the fact that there may be different views on whether it's appropriate for the Chancellor to stay or not is something that sits on top of that disastrous situation that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have created because of the choices that they've taken.
They're going to be announcing this huge change to the NHS today. Needed reform, wouldn't you agree?
So, look, the NHS certainly needs reform. One of the things that it doesn't need is what this government did, which is come in and blow £26 billion on the NHS without having a clear plan as to how they would drive up productivity.
Well, they're saying they've got waiting lists down. They've managed to resolve the strike action.
So, well, there's also balloting going on around further strike action, so that's not a problem that's gone away. The main point here, though, is that with the NHS, you need not just to have a plan, and let's see what that plan is later today, but they had 14 years in opposition and a year in government to put that plan together. The question that you have to ask is, can they deliver on it? And what we've seen with the U-turn on winter fuel, the U-turn, for example, on national inquiry into grooming gangs that Kemi and others pressed so hard for, what we've seen with the U-turn on this welfare bill, where the bill was completely gutted, whilst the second reading was in progress, actually. Quite an extraordinary event. I've never seen anything like it. That does not speak to delivery and having a grip. And if you're going to get the reforms in the NHS to work, you need delivery and grip. And this government, I'm afraid, doesn't have either.
Look, you make that argument forcefully, and you guys have been making that argument for weeks, but you'll know that just a week or so ago, there was that big MRP poll that found the Conservatives down on 46 seats. I mean, despite you making these arguments, Mel Stryden, you make them well, the public just aren't listening to the Tories at the moment.
So, look, there's no doubt we had a very punishing result in the general election and in the local election. And it will take time for my party to get that traction back and that hearing with the electorate. So what we must do now, as I'm doing on your programme, is hold this government ruthlessly to account. That's what the British electorate sent us to the Commons to do, to express our Conservative values, to come forward with policy along the way as and when appropriate,
okay,
but at the same time, do the hard work of coming up with the right policy platform for the next general election, which will address the fundamental challenges that our country has. A radical rewiring of the economy, getting taxes down, getting the size of the state down, looking at our skills, getting welfare under control in the way that this government
all great
hasn't.
ambitions, all great
very
ambitions,
important things.
but perhaps
it will take time to address those fundamental
had you gone
tough challenges.
the other way around and put your policies in place, then you wouldn't find yourself languishing in these.
Well, we've come forward with a number of policies. We've said that we will reverse the changes this government brought into property. Business property relief, agricultural property relief, the farms tax, we will reverse. We would, for example, have a situation where it's much more difficult for people that come here to get indefinite leave to remain as part of addressing net migration, illegal migration. Also disapplying the Human Rights Act when it comes to deporting those that come to our shores illegally. Lots of tough policy that we've come out with. The fact of the matter is, you're right, we're low in the polls, and part of that is it will take time to build that dialogue and that connection with the electorate, but we will get there because we're very clear on our principles and we will come up with the right solutions for our country.
We will see. Niall Stride, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Good morning to you. All right, let's take you back to Manchester, where, as I said, the Deputy Mayor of Manchester, representative from the Fire Service, is reporting on the police watchdog report into grooming gangs. Right now, Sir Stephen Watson, who's Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, is speaking. You can watch along with it there in the side panel. If you just click that QR code that you see on screen, you can hear what Chief Constable Watson has to say about the force's response to that report into grooming gangs and the way they handled the victims. All right, let's take a look at the weather.
A bright start and always a warm welcome. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, it's cooler and fresher, and it's going to turn more unsettled going into the weekend. Mostly fine now, but the northwest has some rain. That rain will spread across the north this morning. It won't reach eastern Scotland until lunchtime. Meanwhile, England and Wales are going to be largely dry with sunny spells. The south of Ireland can expect some heavy showers. It's going to be warm for the south. Northern Britain can expect more rain through the afternoon, with thundery downpours possible. North East Scotland, though, looks most at risk. Elsewhere, southern Britain, largely fine.
A bright start and always a warm welcome. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
All right, still to come this morning on The Breakfast Show, the 10-year plan to rewire the NHS. I'm going to speak to the Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
And then welcome back. In a moment, we're going to speak to the NHS Confederation about the Health Secretary, or the government's NHS plan. But first, our top stories. And the Prime Minister is going to set out that plan for the future of the NHS later on this morning. He's expected to announce 200 new neighbourhood health centres that are going to be opened all around England, and the NHS will train thousands more family doctors. The Health Secretary has told us the Chancellor is here to stay after she was pictured crying in the House of Commons. Rachel Rees has been under scrutiny following the government's U-turns on welfare. And Sean Combs has been denied bail as he awaits sentencing on 2 counts of transportation to commit prostitution. The 55-year-old will stay in jail until he is sentenced in October. The Prime Minister is going to set out his 10-year plan for the NHS, which he claims will fundamentally rewire the service. Keir Starmer will give a speech at around 10 a.m. to outline his plan, focused on 3 main changes. Well, they are 200 new neighbourhood health centres. They're going to be opened around England. The NHS will train thousands more family doctors to see patients at home, and new technology will be rolled out to help GPs become less reliant on paperwork. Let's speak to Matthew Taylor, the Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation. Matthew Taylor, morning to you. It's good to have you as always. What do you make of what you've seen so far of this plan?
Well, the NHS needs a new approach. You know, we are facing really difficult issues. The public confidence in the NHS has declined. Obviously, we have still long waits for elective care. So there's been a lot of anticipation in the health service around this plan, and I think people will be enthusiastic about what they hear today. And in particular, the government's focusing on this idea of the neighbourhood health service today. And I think that's really about 3 things. It's firstly about how do we move more care out of hospitals, which is the most expensive place in which you can provide care, and do more of that work within the local community. So more outpatient appointments in the local community, more minor surgery perhaps in the local community, getting to people earlier. The second thing is to develop a service that which is more personalised to people. So 2/3 now of the things that drive demand in the health service are actually driven by people who've got long-term conditions, often multiple conditions, maybe physical conditions, mental health conditions, social challenges. And the health service has not been very good at really helping those people solve their problems, be in control of their health and their lives. So these neighbourhood teams will bring people together across the health service, but also from the voluntary sector, from local government. So we're better at solving the problems of those people who have these long-term and multiple conditions. And then the third part is to be more proactive. And what that means is not waiting for people to get sick and sometimes turning up in A&E departments at an advanced stage of illness, but actually going out into the community. There's, for example, great practice in Westminster where literally health workers go and knock on doors. And by doing that, they'll find people who are starting to develop physical or mental health issues and can get to those people and help them, but also encourage more people to do preventative work, like taking vaccinations, for example. So this is really about improving the effectiveness of the health service, a more personalised service, but also one that is more proactive and gets to people earlier.
Matthew Taylor, what do you make of the language that's been used around this? Make or break, reform or die? I mean, you know, the other side of that, if you don't get this right, is that the health service won't exist in the way that we've become used to.
I think the NHS, as it approaches, moves towards 80 years of existence, is in a time of unprecedented jeopardy, and that's a reflection of the fact that public trust is at lowest level than we've ever seen. We know about the long waits. We know about the fact that our IT systems, our state is out of date, and we know also that more people are opting to provide for themselves. They're paying to have operations. Young people accessing primary care through paid-for apps on their phones. More people getting private prescriptions. So I think that there's a relatively short time, the time of this 10-year plan, to restore public confidence, to show that the NHS can offer the kind of quality of service that people now expect in the modern world. So, yes, there's a strong sense, I think, across the health service that we've got to get this right. And actually, at the heart of the 10-year plan, technological change, shifting resources upstream, these are things we've talked about for decades and not gotten them right. This time, we have to get them right.
Matthew, what do you make of the idea, and I put it to the Health Secretary a little earlier, about patients being able, in a few weeks after they've had their appointment in hospital, to then be able to rate that treatment and then that hospital getting paid as a result of that? I put it to him that it's a trial, it's never been attempted anywhere else. He said, yes, that's right, we're going to try it here. What do you make of that experiment?
I think an interesting thing about the 10-year plan is that it has a very strong theme running through it of what you might call democratisation, trying to put power in the hands of patients. And this trial of the idea that hospitals should be paid in part through patient satisfaction. Now, this is not something we've seen in other parts of the world, and it needs to be implemented very carefully, but it should be seen as part of a whole range of things, giving patients more control through the use of the NHS app, so that when you book an operation, you can look at the ratings of hospitals, you can choose where it is you want to go to. That kind of more personalised care that I was talking about. One of the radical ideas in this plan is that everyone will have their own personal health record, and that you and I will be able to access that record. There'll be nothing that the health service knows about us that we don't know about ourselves, and that's also going to make it easier. The frustration that people have when they go from one bit of the health service to another and they have to start all over again explaining who they are and what their condition is, and that should be improved. So it's a really strong theme throughout the plan to try to actually hand power to patients, partly because, that's what we expect in the modern world. We expect to have that kind of control at our fingertips. But also, I think the evidence supports this, that if patients do feel empowered, if they do feel in control, well, you'll get better outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, it's radical. It feels quite radical to me. And I suppose from the way you've argued it is like that. But there might be a perverse incentive, that poor performing hospitals that treat a patient poorly will then get less money. That won't improve them, will it?
No, so, we've said about this specific idea about patient feedback and driving the money that, we need to see how it works. But it's a relatively small part of the plan. The plan has got many things in it which are kind of experimental. They're things that are going to be tried out, new ways of using money in the health service, for example, different models of delivery. And I think that's right, because one of the things the health service has suffered for a long time is over-centralisation. The NHS is just too complicated. It's too big to try to run it all from the centre. So this plan contains lots of ideas which mean actually you'll see quite a different way of organising the health service in different parts of the country, because, what is needed in Cornwall is not the same as what's needed in East London, where the plan is going to be launched officially in an hour or so's time.
Matthew, while, they're in the process of this sort of bold look ahead for the next 10 years, shouldn't they have been bolder about the way that the NHS is funded and look at other models as a way of making sure that the NHS can continue into the future? I'm not sure that idea is trialled, is thought about in this 10-year plan.
Well, I think, the research is pretty clear about this. There are different ways of funding health services. Most health services in most developed countries like Britain are essentially universal and free. how you fund that, whether it's tax or social insurance or whether, it doesn't really seem to make any difference to the kind of quality or productivity of the health service. So, you know, I would say to any politician, do you really want to spend the next 10 or 15 years redesigning the funding mechanism? There'll be winners, there'll be losers, it'll be incredibly disruptive, and there's no evidence that it'll make things any better. That's really not where we should be focusing our energies. We have the system that we have. It is a perfectly reasonable way of funding the health service. What we've got to focus on is how we get, you know, better outcomes from people from the money that we're spending.
Really good to get that clarification. Matthew Taylor, Chief Exec of the NHS Confederation. Appreciate it, Matthew. Good to speak with you, as always, and good morning. Now, officials in Gaza say 12 people have been killed in an Israeli strike on a school in Gaza City. Displaced families have been sheltering in the facility. There are also reports of another strike on Al-Shifa, the hospital, which has led to multiple casualties. Now, new analysis by Sky has revealed civilian deaths in Gaza increase when aid is being distributed by the US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a controversial organisation. Tom Cheshire has this.
The 8 points run by Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, are controversial. Critics call them death traps. The IDF says it is examining reports of civilians being harmed, and GHF itself says there have been no incidents or fatalities at or near its sites, and that this is all Hamas disinformation. So we've got incidents, reports, disinformation. But we have found a clear pattern in the data that shows that Palestinian deaths increase when GHF sites are open. This is what we're talking about. This footage is of an incident near the Netzrim corridor. Shows people taking cover from gunfire in the middle of Gaza last week. We've geolocated the instance near a GHF site over here, and we've done the same for multiple other incidents where fatalities were reported. As of July the 2nd, the Gaza Health Ministry, run by Hamas, has said that 600 people have been killed. Israel and GHF say that this is disinformation, claiming that no one has died at these aid sites. But we've analysed the reports of deaths and injuries on the days that the aid sites have been open, and we found that deaths and injuries in Gaza are higher on days when more of the GHF aid sites are operational. In other words, when more sites are open, more people die. You can see that here. On days when the GHF conducts just 2 distributions or fewer, health officials report an average of 48 deaths in red and 189 injuries in yellow. But if we look at days with 5 or 6 GHF distributions, authorities have reported almost 3 times as many casualties, this chart over here. We also found that, on average, 30% of aid distributions have ended in violence. Between the 8th of June and the 1st of July, there were 77 distributions across GHF's 4 sites. You can see those marks over here, SDS's secure distribution sites. Now, 23 of those distributions, at least, there were reports of fatal shootings. That gives us that average of 30%. We've also spoken to eyewitnesses, including Huda Abu Salim.
All along the way, you're hiding. You hide here, then run, then hide again. At any moment, they might shoot you. You might make it back, or you might not. I witnessed death firsthand. Bodies lay bleeding on the ground all around me. This is not right. Food should be delivered to UN warehouses, and this entire operation must be shut down.
We asked the IDF for comment, and this is what they said. The IDF did not instruct the forces to deliberately shoot at civilians, including those approaching distribution centres. To be clear, IDF directives prohibit deliberate attacks on civilians. They also added, in light of reports of incidents of harm to the civilians approaching the distribution centres, the incidents are being examined by the relevant IDF authorities, and further action will be taken as necessary. Recently, over 200 NGOs have signed a letter calling for immediate action to end the GHF scheme, which they say is led by Israel, and to go back to the existing UN-led coordination mechanisms.
Tom Cheshire reporting there. And later on this morning, we're going to speak to the Palestinian ambassador to the United Kingdom, Hussam Zomlot. He'll be here with us at about 9:45. Well, still to come on the breakfast programme, we're going to be live in Zurich as Wales are going to make their debut at the Euros, as England will have their opening game. And Rob Harris is there for us.
Yes, the Women's European Championship is underway. I've been at the England base as they prepare for their title defence. And after this, hear from one of their key players.
In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Thousands of Russians were drafted.
For some, the reality of frontline warfare meant one thing: desertion.
I had a rush of adrenaline. It was a kind of treason.
But they did not escape on their own.
I help people to desert Russian army.
The stakes are high, but for some, there's no other option.
We keep going till Putin's regime is over.
Escaping Putin on Sky News.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
Tel Aviv's skyline and the familiar sounds of an Iranian salvo. This caught some off guard. It's perhaps part of a broader psychological strategy by Iran to make Israel look exposed.
This is the source of Hezbollah's fury, the aftermath of an assassination.
What happens here has the potential to reshape the Middle East. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Welcome back. Now, the Euros are underway and defending champions England begin their campaign against France on Saturday in Zurich. In a moment, we'll speak to two supporters of England and Wales, who are, of course, making their debut at a major tournament. But first, let's go to Zurich and bring in our sports correspondent, Rob Harris. And Rob, plenty of excitement ahead of England taking to the pitch.
Yes, and I've been at their training camp speaking to a player you might be less familiar with now, but Aggie Beever-Jones could well become one of the stars of this tournament because at 21, she's already just won a treble with Chelsea. She was their top scorer in the Women's Super League, so she could be potentially quite an option off the bench for Serena Wiegmann. But first, Beever-Jones and all the players are going to have to cope with some of these sweltering conditions, and it's something I spoke to her about yesterday when I was at the team hotel. First training session, quite hot, the conditions.
Yeah, no, it's been boiling. I think we managed to get a good session in this morning, and yeah, we're extremely lucky to be in such an incredible hotel. It feels like a home away from home.
You've had a sensational couple of years, winning the treble then last season, or season that's just finished. What is it that you can bring to this team?
I love scoring goals, I love helping out where I can, and I know I will say to everyone that I'll work hard, and especially playing for England, it's one of the greatest honours and something that I'll never ever take for granted. The last time the Euros was happening, I was there at the final at Wembley with my family, and now to be in this position is definitely a full circle moment for me.
When you're at Wembley that day, did you think, I want to be there for the next Euros?
Yeah, of course, but I mean, whether I thought it was an actual possibility is a different story. And yeah, I'm a firm believer that you get these opportunities when you work hard. And I know for the past 3 years I've been working extremely hard, being at Chelsea and having Emma and Sonia. And yeah, I feel extremely lucky and privileged to kind of be here. And I'm just trying to soak it all in and can't really wipe the smile off my face.
All right, well, Rob, you stay where you are, because I'm going to come back to you in a moment. But first, I want to bring in two supporters of England and, of course, of Wales. Rupert Vyas, founder of Her Game to Cymru, and Brighton Hove Albion's Her Game to ambassador Alice Botting. Rupert, Alice, morning to you both. Thanks for being with us. Let me come to you first, Rupert, because, I mean, big couple of days ahead for Welsh football. First major tournament. How are you feeling?
I'm just so excited, to be honest. To see our team on this huge stage for the first time ever is phenomenal. And, yeah, I just cannot wait.
What's the impact been? I mean, we know they've qualified, of course. Now the tournament's about to get underway. For people in Wales seeing, you know, them about to take to the pitch?
Yeah, I think the impact is huge. We've already seen women's football growing sort of across the UK and across Wales now, for girls to see women who've grown up in areas that they have on this huge stage is only just going to continue to have a positive impact. And it's also going to show boys and men that women can play football too, and it's going to be a bit more normalised.
100%. All right, Alice, let me bring you in at this point then. There's a bit of pressure on England, I guess, right, to perform, considering they're defending champions, and a huge game ahead on Saturday, and a tough group to get out of.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always going to be the pressure when you're the group when you're the competition holders. But I think the pressure could do us well. Germany have done it a couple of times where they've kept their trophies, so there's no reason we can't. It is a tough group, but you know, to be the best, you have to beat the best. So it's going to be a good challenge.
Yeah, and how do you think they've sort of got themselves ready for this tournament? It was a big sort of statement win, I think, against Jamaica just, what was it, last week? Beating them 7-0, scoring plenty of goals. I don't think Jamaica were quite at full strength, but good to go into a tournament having scored plenty of goals like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with quite a few different goal scorers and different players in the rotation, I think it's going to be really good for confidence, because it just gives some of the girls that might not have normally had the opportunity to get those goals and get the minutes the chance to. So hopefully everyone's going to go in on a massive high.
Right, Rupert, let me bring you back in now. I mean, I don't know if you had a look online and you can see the sort of the stats as to whether or not Wales are going to get out of the group. It's not looking great for the Welsh, unfortunately, but in the tournament, and it's a tough group to get out of. What's your sense as to how well they can do and whether they'll actually get out of that group of death? Of course, in the same group as England.
Yeah, I think it's just our luck that we've been drawn in that group, to be honest. It's pretty typical, but I think, you know, as Alice alluded to as well, if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. I don't think we're quite, you know, we're quite humble and we're quite honest with our sort of abilities. So, yeah, we'll give it our best. But, you know, Rhian Wilkinson said as well, we want to play these teams. We want to be on this huge stage, beating or just competing against the very best. And then, you know, we can continue to grow. We've got a pretty senior team at the moment on the whole. You know, we've got players like Jess Fishlock who are near the 40s. You know, this could be our first and last ever tournament. So, you know, we're just going to go with it. I think success for us just looks like being there is a success. But yeah, I'd love to see one win, especially when I'm out in Switzerland next week.
Oh, well, let's hope they get a win in time for you being there. Alice, we're going to say bye, and Rupert, thanks both. The game is on the 13th of July, isn't it? I won't get you to make predictions because I think it might be too much. But wishing both sides all the very best of luck. Let's go back to Zurich then and bring Rob in. Rob, as I said, that game is on the 13th of July. It's Wales' first tournament. I think Rupert is being ambitious, kind as well to that team. They've got a lot of work to do, but it'll be great to see them perform well, and even if they don't get out of the group, to play well, maybe get a couple of goals will mean a lot.
Yes, particularly as they do try and grow the game across Wales. Football more generally, obviously rugby can dominate in Wales. There is some encouraging news for the team. Sophie Ingle, the versatile midfielder defender, she's been out injured since September, suffered an ACL injury playing for Chelsea in pre-season. She believes, though, she can be fit to play on Saturday against the Netherlands, but that will be challenging, as it could be for England against France. But England fans starting to arrive here in Zurich. I was in the fan zone last night to see the host Switzerland play Norway, and it was packed. It was overflowing. People were queuing to get in. Ultimately, Switzerland did lose 2-1 despite taking the lead, but certainly things off to a bright start here as Switzerland host their first Women's Euros with a record attendance for a women's game last night in Switzerland.
Absolutely. All right, Rob, for now, thank you for that, Rob and team there in Zurich. More from you throughout the day as that tournament continues. All right, let's speak now about a new movie that's out next week. Debbie has joined us. Debbie, regard our arts and entertainment reporter, because you were at the London premiere of the movie last night, weren't you?
Superman, yes. I know, Kamani, you're very excited about this.
I am. Wait to the people.
It's first in line in the cinema when it comes out on the 11th of July. But yeah, so Superman, it is the new iteration of Superman. I know we've seen him plenty of times in TV series and films over the years since the 70s. But this time it's James Gunn at the helm. And if people are unaware of who James Gunn is, he had pretty much been credited with creating the Marvel Universe's minor characters becoming the major characters in the world. So he was the person behind Guardians of the Galaxy. And now he is at the helm of DC Studios entirely.
And is it with he's gone from Marvel to DC?
Yeah, so there was a bit of controversy around this. So back in 2018, he was let go from Disney after some tweets resurfaced online.
Bit of controversy, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it was by March 2019 then a lot of the cast and crew backed him and said he apologised and they wanted him back. So Disney brought him back in 2019 to make the third iteration of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But in that space and time, DC Universe saw their opportunity and they hired him as the director for Suicide Squad. And so through that was his entryway in. Now he's gotten that big promotion. He's now the co-CEO of DC Studios. And what that means is he now has control of the creative aspect of DC Studios. But yeah, so with this, he is now kind of controlling the way we're going to now see Superman and a lot of the minor characters that we're going to see. It's what he's really excited about. We've got Supergirl, Wonder Woman, lots to come.
You didn't mention the super dog.
So
Go
we've
on.
had how many Supermen now? It's like Doctor Who.
Christopher Reeve.
There's a new one every... There's 10 altogether.
Henry Cavill.
Okay, well, yeah. Christopher Reeve, Henry Cavill, and then there's about 10 when it comes to TV series like Smallville, and then there's other TV shows in the 80s and 90s as well.
All right, and it's out next week. Murray, we're not going to get your opinion. I know you're going to love it. We'll go together. I'll get the popcorn, all right? Stay with us, guys. We're going to have plenty more of the day's main news after this short break.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Good morning. It is 9 a.m. and on today's show, reform or die, the Prime Minister's message for the NHS ahead of a major announcement this morning on the future of the service.
Plus, the Health Secretary tells this programme Rachel Reeves, as Chancellor, is here to stay despite yesterday's tears in Parliament.
It is Thursday, the 3rd of July. Sir Keir Starmer promises a seismic shift to bring the NHS into the 21st century. The government denies the Chancellor is on her way out after tears in the Commons raise big questions for the Labour Party.
To knock this issue on the head, Rachel Reeves as Chancellor is here to stay.
Also ahead, we've got a special report on the cheap synthetic drug that's wrecking lives in West Africa's poorest communities. And Sean Combs is denied bail as he awaits sentencing on 2... Well, good morning and thank you for being with us. The Prime Minister says the NHS must reform or die. Sir Keir Starmer will make one of the most important announcements of his premiership this morning when he unveils the government's 10-year plan for the future of the service in England. But it comes against a backdrop of tears, recriminations and questions over both the Chancellor's future as well as his own. Two senior Labour sources have told Sky News that he could be gone within months. Well, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, insisted on this programme. Rachel Reeves is here to stay. We'll speak to Mario about that in just a moment. But first, let's look at what is going to be announced later on this morning. Well, there will be 200 new neighbourhood health centres opened around England. The NHS will train thousands more family doctors who will see patients at home. And new technology will be rolled out to help GPs become less reliant on paperwork. Let's bring in our health correspondent, Laura Bundock, for more on this. Morning to you, Laura. So I think you're at GP's surgery. What are they saying about what could be coming down the line for them for the next 10 years?
To see him face to face.
Hello there. Well, look, this is the beating heart of Heathcote Medical Practice in Woking. All the calls are coming in, not just telephone calls, but of course, online requests for appointments to the GPs. Let's find out exactly what GPs make about this. They're bringing in Dr. Navin Kumar. So thousands more GPs to end this 8 a.m, as they call it, sort of scramble going on behind us now. Thousands more GPs sounds good. What does it mean in practice?
Well, I think it'd be, like you said, it does sound great, but how to get these in and where are we going to be able to fund them from? That's my difficulty in understanding. And because with the national insurance and the minimum pay increases as a business, how are we going to keep on funding for more if we don't get more from the government to bolster our contract?
And then there's pressures on GP services at the moment. You've got 18,000 patients. You get roughly sort of 600 engagements every day, wanting to see a GP, needing various appointments, moving into some kind of community health setting whereby you've got other services under one roof, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Would that ease things?
I think it would be helpful to have that where you are working in the multidisciplinary teams, being able to engage with the district nurses and pharmacists and physios. So we're all working towards the same goal for each patient. But I'm not entirely sure how it would ease the whole general practice side of work.
Just tell me, how pressured is it at the moment? And does it feel like it's getting worse?
It is very pressured. We're constantly trying to keep up with the demand that we're getting through. With the online access, it makes it easier for patients to communicate with us, but then it does mean that we're having to work longer and harder, put more and more appointments out for patients to keep up with the demand.
Just very quickly, it feels like every new government promises to fix the NHS. From what you've seen, from what you've heard, does this feel significantly different?
It's difficult to say, I think, at this point until we know what the details are. But it would be nice to see if we can get to somewhere where it starts improving life for patients coming to see their general practitioner.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar. A busy morning here. Like I say, about 600 patient engagements expected throughout the day, and we're very much at the beginning of that morning rush.
We are indeed. OK, Laura, for now, thank you for that. Well, Mari is with us. Mari, I mean, I guess on any other day we will be talking about this NHS plan, but unfortunately we have to talk about what we saw in the Commons yesterday, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer in tears.
Yeah, so we've had some more kind of meat on the bones, let's say, of what has gone on yesterday. You know, we had the Chancellor of the Exchequer, as you were saying, in tears, behind the Prime Minister, during Prime Minister's questions, the entire 45 minutes. That sparked alarm bells, it got the markets worried, you know, the value of the pound dropped, the cost of borrowing went up. There was concern about whether, you know, she was being sacked, is she going to be sacked? Has she already been sacked? Who would be next? Yeah. You know, there was a huge amount of speculation, and that really fueled, I think, some of the panic in the markets, which was not helpful. And then the government have come out this morning and really tried to clear everything up. So Wes Streeting, speaking to you, he was not only trying to say, you know, she's here to stay, Starmer's here to stay, this is the vision, this is the project, but he was also, and we can listen to a clip of this, but he was also very, very clear to try and make sure that he really kind of blew Rachel Reeves' trumpet in terms of how good she is, what she's done so far, what she's got plans on doing, and really her fiscal credibility and why that is so valuable to the Labour project. We can hear him now where he explains why she's such a valued asset to the team.
Okay.
One of the reasons why she has such strong support across the cabinet, the strength of Rachel isn't just the judgments she applies where she says yes, but perhaps even more importantly, those judgments where she says no. Because you need someone in that office who has the experience, the judgment, and the strength to make not always the easy choices, not always the popular choices, but the right choices to get our economy growing. And you see that reflected in the record of Rachel in her first 12 months as Chancellor. And just to knock this issue on the head, Rachel Reeves as Chancellor is here to stay.
So you can see there, he's trying to be very, very, very clear about the situation, trying to make sure that there's no more speculation, no more concerns, really to kind of calm the nerves of the markets. And I think what was interesting was there are still a few questions outstanding on this. So, first of all, you asked him about if it was genuinely a personal issue, why was she in the chamber? And he just said, it is what it is. He didn't answer the question at all. And the Prime Minister's been speaking to Virgin Radio this morning, and he was asked a bit more about this. And he said he didn't even really notice. He said, it's so bizarre. So he said, I actually personally didn't appreciate it was happening in the chamber because I came in, I've got questions being fired at me in PMQ, so I'm constantly up at the dispatch box and down. And so I think some people are going to ask themselves, there was somebody sobbing right next to you for 45 minutes and you didn't notice?
I mean, she was right there, and she was quite clearly upset. And Mel Stride from the opposition said he could see from where he was sitting, so it was clear.
Obviously, they would argue that you can see easier from the opposition benches than you can side to side, but nonetheless, I find that slightly bizarre that he didn't notice. But also, he said, you know, she's spoken to her, he's had a long conversation with her, she's fine, she's good, she's resilient, she's strong, and basically saying that actually he admires her work and her resilience.
So that's that.
So that's that, supposedly, but there are still a few weird moments. Let's just call it that.
We'll call it that for now until you get some more from your sources. Mari, for now, thank you very much for that. All right, let's go to New York now, where Sean Combs has been denied bail after being convicted of 2 prostitution-related offences following his landmark trial. He will now stay in jail until he's sentenced in October. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has this.
Let Puffy go! Let Puffy go!
Outside court calls for the immediate release of the man formerly known as Puff Daddy.
Seems like yesterday we used to rock the show.
Sean Diddy Combs, a music mogul who built his own brand, had been facing the possibility of life in prison.
Man, I'm so happy right now, man.
Instead, celebrations among his supporters as he's cleared of the most serious charges against him. Combs was still found guilty of transportation for prostitution.
It's not a party till we're all here.
Not that you'd know it from the ecstatic reaction of his defence team, including lead lawyer Mark Agnifilo. Sean Combs was found guilty of 2 federal crimes, yet this feels like a victory tour. Is that how it feels for you?
It feels good. It feels good. So thank you all for coming.
How does he feel, sir? How is Mr. Combs feeling?
Okay.
Does he think he'll be free within the next few years? Will Sean Combs be giving you a bonus, sir? Cassie Ventura, Combs's former girlfriend, had been the star witness. The prosecution said Diddy forced her into partaking in so-called freak-offs, drug-fuelled sex sessions with male prostitutes. The jury watched this video of Combs beating Cassie viciously in a hotel corridor, but crucially found him not guilty of sex trafficking or racketeering. As the verdict was read out, Combs slid to his knees, clasping his chair. In the background, his lead defence lawyers hold each other tightly.
Sean Combs's children have been in court for the past 7 weeks, hearing graphic details of their father's sex life. Their support, though, has remained steadfast.
But they won't be seeing him as a free man anytime soon. The judge rejecting a bail application, a consolation prize for Cassie's lawyer.
We're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes.
Combs, though, as a first-time offender, is unlikely to face anything close to the maximum sentence of 20 years for his crimes.
He sees this as a win.
He absolutely sees this as a win. And you see it in the body language, in the way he's clapping with his children, in the way that he will get a sentence where he can envision the day when he goes home to hug his children.
The verdict, say women's rights groups, is a setback for the Me Too movement. But Combs's defence maintained that his sexual relations had always been consensual.
This is your freedom here!
It's a case which has provoked passion on both sides, the sentencing likely to be just as divisive. Martha Kellner, Sky News, New York.
All right, let's take a look at some of the day's other top stories now. And 4 people have been charged after £7 million worth of damage was caused to 2 planes after a break-in at RAF Brize Norton last month. The incident was claimed by the activist group Palestine Action, who MPs have now prescribed as a terror organisation. At least 4 people have died after a ferry sank off the coast of Indonesia. 38 people are missing. The vessel had just left Ketapang in East Java on Wednesday night and went down within 30 minutes of leaving port. More than 100,000 motorists who drive Citroens have been unable to drive their cars due to a potentially lethal fault with airbags. The owner of Citroën, Stellantis, said that people should stop using the versions of the Citroën C3 and the DS3 until they have resolved the issue. Well, the Princess of Wales has opened up about her cancer recovery, describing it as a roller coaster as she was visiting with patients and staff at a hospital in Colchester. Kate announced that she was in remission last January after she was diagnosed in March of last year and is undergoing chemotherapy. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills reports.
Most people didn't know that she was coming. The princess turning heads as she arrived in Colchester, wanting to hear more about their cancer wellbeing centre, but also make sure that we heard a few things about how she's feeling in recovery.
We put on sort of brave-faced stoicism through treatment. The treatment's done.
Yeah.
So I can crack on and get back to normal again, but actually the phase afterwards is really, is a really difficult journey. You're not necessarily in the clinical team any longer, but you're not able to function normally at home as you perhaps once used to.
While we have got used to a new level of openness from Kate, being this personal on a public visit is still unusual. But clearly, among other patients and volunteers, she felt safe.
But it's life-changing when for anyone through, whether from the first diagnosis or post-treatment and things like that, it is a life-changing experience for both the individual and the patient, but also for families as well. And actually, it sometimes goes sort of unrecognised. I think you don't necessarily, particularly because for the first time, you don't appreciate
how much impact it is going to have. But actually, you have to find your new normal. Yes. And that takes time. And it's a process. It's not one smooth circuit, which you expect it to be. But the reality is it's not. You'll go through hard times.
Her words feel particularly strong coming 2 weeks after she didn't go to Royal Ascot and all of the reporting around that. The palace insisting at the time that there was always going to have to be some flexibility around the engagements that she does now. But this is the first time that we've heard from her that there are some days where she can't do what she used to. Getting her hands dirty still wasn't a problem. Planting roses named after her in the centre's garden. Just how important mind, body and spirit are for recovery is her big message right now.
Very nice to meet you. What's your name?
But also you could hear a subtle plea for maybe more understanding for her and her family and others going through difficult times. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News in Colchester.
OK, let's take a look at the weather forecast.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It's going to be cooler and fresher and more unsettled as we go into the weekend. Mostly fine out now, but the northwest has some rain. That rain will spread across the north this morning. It's not going to reach eastern Scotland, though, until lunchtime. England and Wales will be largely dry with sunny spells, while the south of Ireland can expect heavy showers. It'll be warm for the south. Northern Britain can expect further showery outbreaks through the afternoon, with downpours possible. North-east Scotland looks most at risk. Elsewhere, southern Britain largely fine, while Ireland and Northern Ireland will turn drier and brighter from the west.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Still to come this morning on The Breakfast Show. Sky News investigates a drug which is stronger than fentanyl, which is devastating communities across West Africa.
In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Thousands of Russians were drafted. For some, the reality of frontline warfare meant one thing: desertion.
I had a rush of adrenaline. It was a kind of treason.
But they did not escape on their own.
I help people to desert Russian army.
The stakes are high, but for some, there's no other option.
We keep going till Putin's regime is over.
Escaping Putin on Sky News.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Well, it's mostly fine out now and cooler than it has been recently, but rain will spread across the north, reaching eastern Scotland around lunchtime. Meanwhile, England and Wales are going to be largely dry with sunny spells. Northern Britain can expect some rain through the afternoon with thundery downpours possible too. Elsewhere, southern Britain largely fine. Northern Ireland will turn drier and brighter from the west. It's mainly grass and weed pollen now. It's going to reach high levels for much of England and Wales, but expect lower counts further north.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
I want to bring you a line of breaking news that's coming into us from FA in Spain. They are reporting that the Liverpool and Portugal forward, Diogo Jota, has died after a car crash in the northwest of the country. Diogo Jota, who has been playing for Liverpool since he signed from Wolverhampton Wanderers in September of 2020, said to have died in that car incident. It's not clear at this point whether or not he was the only individual in the car. The only detail we have is that he has died in that crash in the northwest of Spain. Jota, who scored 16 goals for Liverpool, playing 67 times for them in the previous 2 seasons, has also won the Premier League, of course, last season, won the FA Cup for Liverpool in 2022, as well as the Carabao Cup in 2022 and 2024. Now, he was signed by Liverpool, as I said, in September of 2020, moving there from Wolverhampton Wanderers, where he'd been hugely successful and really established Wolves as a Premier League club, a very versatile forward, play all the way across the front line. He originally began his career out in Spain at Atletico Madrid before moving on to Wolves, making a number of appearances, scoring some 17 goals as they moved up from the Championship into the Premier League. He spent a year on loan as well in Porto to try and establish himself as a player, and he has now, or had now established himself as a player for both Liverpool and for the Portuguese national side, which has of course, looked to move on with Cristiano Ronaldo getting older and older. This news that Diogo Jota has died has been received with great sadness, not only by those Liverpool fans, but of course those Portuguese fans as well. Diogo Jota, just a young man dying in a car crash in the northwest of Spain. No further details yet as to exactly the situation when involving Mr. Jota and whether or not he was the only individual in the car. The accident is said to have happened in the northwest of Spain earlier today. We're just getting the reporting of it now. Now, Diogo Jota, as I said, had played for Liverpool after signing from Wolves. He was in the Liverpool squad under Jurgen Klopp, who was the man who signed him from Wolves back in 2020, playing in the Premier League campaign, of course, as well as in the European Cup campaign for the Reds. He was able to score 17 goals for them over a couple of seasons. He scored 9 goals in the Europa League as well during Liverpool's run to the quarterfinals in 2019-2020. A player that played all the way across the front line, could even play in midfield as well, was able to get his caps for Portugal in the past couple of years and was a part of the Portuguese squad for the Euros 2 just before he signed for Liverpool. Now, he was at Wolves, having signed on loan from Atletico Madrid back in 2017. He was with Wolves for a number of seasons and helped the Midlands club get out of the Championship and move into the Premier League and establish themselves as as a Premier League team for a couple of seasons before Anfield came calling. That was in 2020, where the individual who saw him with their former Liverpool manager, their Jurgen Klopp, identified the potential of Diogo Jota as a versatile forward that would fit in very nicely to the Liverpool setup. Upon signing for Liverpool, he established himself as a first-team player, fighting for his position within the club, and this past season has continued to play under new Liverpool boss Arne Slot. Now, the reports coming from the newswires is that he has died following a car accident near Zamora. That's in the northwest of Spain. The reporting's coming from a Spanish television station who have quoted the emergency services who responded to the news of this car crash. Diogo Jota, who signed for Liverpool back in 2020, having left Wolves, also played for the Portuguese national team alongside the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo as well as Bruno Fernandes. Diogo Jota now reported to have died in a car crash in the northwest of Spain near to Zamora. Well, our sports correspondent Rob Harris joins us now live for more on this. And Rob, really tragic news for Diogo Jota's family, friends, and of course for the football teams of which he played for.
Yes, this will obviously be incredibly devastating for so many people who are just discovering this. As someone who is a star of the Premier League, Diogo Jota being in Liverpool's Premier League title winning campaign so recently, part of those celebrations just a few weeks ago, and just days after getting married as well, at such a joyful moment for Diogo Jota. Now, this news coming in from the reports from Spain that Jota, at the age of 28, has been killed in this car crash in Spain. This currently still from Portuguese and Spanish media. Someone who has been one of those members of the squad that has helped Liverpool become such a force in the last few years. The fact that they won the Premier League so unexpectedly last season. One of the players who joined in 2020 from Wolves after they'd won the Premier League that year, and helping to really be part of this period of success with an FA Cup win, the League Cup, as well as the Premier League last season. Obviously, we're still waiting for some more details of this from Zamora. But for Jota, this is obviously coming just days, as we say, after he's posting such joyful images from his wedding, a moment of such celebration. So horrendous news for the Jota family, and so many will feel a connection to him. The fact that so many millions follow Liverpool around the world. One of their owners talking about 1 billion fans potentially, that this is something that will resonate and affect so many who've followed Jota's journey from, particularly in the Premier League, from Wolves to Liverpool, followed him on the international stage as well with Portugal. And, you know, just looking now, it was on, he posted how on June the 22nd, images on Instagram from his wedding with the message, yes to ever, alongside his wife, their children as well in the picture. Again, there was just a post yesterday, the video from their wedding on his Instagram account saying, "A day we will never forget." And, you know, it's the social media account that obviously leaves such a moments of joy in his life that you see just so recently, from the Premier League win to his wedding day, and now this devastating news coming in from Spain that Diogo Jota, at the age of 28, has reportedly died in a car crash. Local media are citing firefighters who were at the scene. And you know, Jota is someone who there's such a trail of goals that he has provided, 65 goals and 182 appearances for Liverpool. One of those players who has been part of that success over the last few years, as we wait to discover more details out of Spain on just how this incident has unfolded.
Thank you for that, Rob. It is being reported in Spanish media, unconfirmed reports at this stage, that Diogo Jota, we should say the 28-year-old Liverpool footballer, Portuguese national footballer, died in that car crash alongside his brother, as Rob was just telling us. Diogo Jota just celebrated his wedding, his death, in this car crash being reported by Spanish media in Zamora in the north of Spain. He just got married back in June, and he leaves behind three children and, of course, his wife. As Rob was saying, Diogo Jota, who signed for Liverpool from Wolves back in 2020, really established himself now as a top Premier League footballer, scoring plenty of goals. Seems a versatile striker, one that can play in all sorts of positions, perhaps even in the midfield, was in the Portuguese national side as well, and had chipped in, contributed with plenty of goals for Liverpool this year. Of course, Liverpool Premier League champions, and Diogo Jota was a key member of that squad, signed by that man there, Jurgen Klopp, the former Liverpool manager from Wolves back in 2020, after he took that team, that Midlands club, from the Championship into the Premier League, signing for Wolves from Spain, where he was playing for Atletico Madrid prior to making that move to the English League, the Championship with Wolves, and then into the Premier League with Wolves, and then getting the big signing, the big move to Liverpool, to Anfield, where he's won trophies over the past few seasons, signing in 2020. And in that time, Diogo Jota won the Premier League. He won the FA Cup in 2022, the Carabao Cup twice, 2022 and 2024. Well, our correspondent, Emma Birchley, is here with us to continue to react to this news of Diogo Jota having died in a car crash. Emma, what more do we know, if anything, at this stage? Early reports coming in, right?
Yeah, we're starting to get some information now. This happened at 20 to 1 in the morning on the A52. So this is in northwest Spain, near Zamora, which is actually close to the Portuguese border. Diogo Jota, obviously Portuguese himself, he was 28 years old, but he was also in that car with his brother, 26-year-old, also a footballer. And when the emergency services arrived, both of them were dead. It appears, at first sight, that the car went off the road. Investigations, of course, being carried out, and the car caught fire. It was engulfed in flames. So now will come the time of trying to work out exactly what went on. But we have to remember, you know, this was a time of joy for the family just a week and a half ago. He married his long-term girlfriend. He has 3 children, really young children. And so after that joy, on social media, Yester Forever, with a picture of them looking so very happy. And now the family having to deal with this. So 28 years old, 26-year-old, the brothers who have now died in this car crash.
Yeah, and of course social media responding, paying tribute to Diogo Jota. Just read a few of the messages that we've seen that are being tagged on Twitter in relation to this. Awful news regarding Diogo Jota this morning. Our thoughts are, of course, with his family. Rest in peace, Diogo Jota. Sincere condolences to his family, friends and loved ones. And, of course, you'll never walk alone. Diogo Jota, who has died at the age of 28 in a car crash alongside his brother in the northwest of Spain, close to Zamora, as our correspondent Emma Birchley has been telling us, close to the Portuguese border, of course. Diogo Jota was a Portuguese international. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris is still with us for this, as we continue to try and piece together exactly what has taken place here and look back on the life of Diogo Jota. And Rob, look, Diogo Jota had 49 caps for the Portuguese national team. He's managed to score 14 goals in that time and made his debut back in 2019.
Jota had been a period of incredible success with Portugal. Just a few weeks ago, he won the Nations League. They beat, as Portugal, Spain in the final of that competition. They also won the competition in 2019. Portugal, not a country that has been notably successful internationally over the years, but Jota, alongside one of the world's most illustrious players, Cristiano Ronaldo, part of that success just a few weeks ago in the Nations League competition. So just reflecting on these last few weeks, the fact Jota won the Premier League with Liverpool, then the Nations League with Portugal, and then he got married as well. This was an incredible period of joy in most recent weeks for Jota, and now these reports suggesting obviously such a devastating incident in terms of this car crash which has killed the Liverpool player at the age of 28. He is a player whose versatility has been so integral for Liverpool as they've really become a force in English football once again, winning the FA Cup, winning the League Cup and the Premier League. Premier League title which had eluded them for so long. They won it in 2020 when Jota was at Wolves, and he was part of a Wolves team that was really punching above its weight then as it was pushing at the top of the Premier League. And then he secured that big move to Liverpool in 2020, becoming part of Jurgen Klopp's team. Then helping Arne Slot as the new Liverpool coach have such a successful start to his reign last season by winning the Premier League title. So, he's someone who's shown his ability to move between countries. Atletico Madrid is where he had success before moving on to Wolves, and the status that he had at Liverpool really seen in the success that he enjoyed, and that is what will make news of his death as well so devastating to so many around the world. The Premier League is obviously watched by so many globally. Liverpool, with a fan base of potentially hundreds of millions, that will be watching players like Jota for their joy in matches to deliver the success they can celebrate. And of course, it's Liverpool who had their trophy parade through the streets of Liverpool just at the end of May as well, that Jota was part of. And you just have to look, as we were reflecting earlier, on something like Jota's Instagram account. It shows just what a period of joy it had been in recent weeks, those trophy successes, his marriage that was celebrated in recent weeks, and then the video posted just yesterday of the happiest day, really, of his life. And as we discover more information about just what led to this car crash, obviously at Liverpool, they'll be trying to discover just what has happened as well. But this will be news that will be hitting the Jota family obviously very hard, but Liverpool fans, football fans around the world, as someone who will be known to so many people.
Absolutely. Rob, thank you for that for now. And the reporting that we are getting from Spain is that Diogo Jota was in that car alongside his brother, who is 25. Andre Felipe Teixeira da Silva, he's also a professional footballer, plays currently in Portugal for the club FC Penafiel. Again, an attacking midfielder, much like Diogo Jota. The circumstances of that incident not quite clear at this stage. As Emma was telling us a short time ago, it happened on a road, the A52, in the northwest of Spain, close to the Portuguese border. There's more anyone who's been to that part of the world know that there is no border check between the two nations. People drive backwards and forwards, of course, as the two nations are very close. The circumstances of the crash not yet known, but Spanish media reporting that it was firefighters who found the vehicle, and these two individuals, these two professional footballers, these two brothers, perhaps in the country, marking the fact that Diogo Jota, just in the past few days, has got married to his long-term partner, with whom he has 3 children, were found dead in that vehicle. Now, Diogo Jota, who was 28, a professional footballer for many years, his most recent club, Liverpool, have not yet responded to this news. The news of it broke just a very short time ago. Checking social media and the social media accounts of these clubs, because of course there will be huge reaction from Liverpool, as well as his former club here in the UK, Wolverhampton Wanderers, with whom he made his name and because of whom he was able to get that high-profile move to Liverpool, the Premier League champions, with whom he's been such an integral part of their success for the past few seasons. Of course, Liverpool, as Rob was saying, are Premier League champions, and Diogo Jota was a key part of that squad, chipping in with plenty of goals, a really versatile attacking midfielder that can play all the way across the front line as well as in midfield. And it's not just for Liverpool that he was so vital. He was also a part of the Portuguese national team, winning the Nations League not long ago as a part of the team alongside Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, as well as those other Portuguese national stars who will all now, of course, be receiving this news as well and reacting to the fact that they've lost a friend, a teammate, colleague in what would appear to be tragic circumstances in the northwest of Spain, dying in a car crash alongside his brother. Emma virtually is still with us. And Emma, you've been trying to get some more information on it. Why don't we just sort of recap where we are with all of this and try and understand what we know so far about this incident?
So we know that several calls were made to the emergency services. It was 20 to 1 this morning. In northwest Spain, close to Zamora, they were travelling on the A52, quite close to the Portuguese border. Of course, Diogo Jota and his brother Andre, both Portuguese. The emergency services arrived. The car had gone off the road. It had been engulfed in flames. And when they got to the car, they discovered the brothers had both died. So Diogo, 28, his brother, 26. And the area around had caught light, the vegetation, and an investigation, as you would expect, underway now to work out what happened, what went so wrong. What's such a tragedy is, we've got two brothers here who've died at a time of what is joy for that family, because Diogo only married a week and a half ago, and had just said in an interview he was the luckiest man in the world. He'd married his long-term girlfriend. They have 3 young children together. They'd married in Porto, in Portugal, and now, a week and a half later, the family having to cope with this just monumental loss after these reports of the car crash in the early hours of this morning.
Yeah, just looking through the social media response to all of this on X, of course, a photograph was posted on their own social media of the couple on their wedding day just less than a week ago.
Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful photo.
It really is, and you can see his young family alongside his wife. As you say, Emma, will have been the happiest time of this family's life, and as well as their extended family, I'm sure they will have all got together. As people within Portugal do when they have big weddings, and the family will all have been there, and perhaps they were all in the area all together celebrating this moment. Of course, the Premier League season is in the off-season, so despite being in training every now and again, Diogo Jota would essentially have been able to take his own time, and of course would have been given a dispensation from Liverpool to go and get married before getting back into training later on in the summer. Now, this tragedy has struck, and the reaction will now be as to the response from Liverpool Football Club, the response from Wolves, and response from the Portuguese national side as well. Diogo Jota, a very popular footballer, just 28, versatile footballer, a very good footballer, chipped in with loads of goals this season. Not just goals, but assists as well. He was that kind of player who was a really unselfish player, was able to support teammates, which is why he saw such success at Wolves, Liverpool, and in the Portuguese national team. Rob Harris, our sports correspondent, is still with us. And Rob, as I said, I'm just looking online at some of the reaction. There's been nothing yet from the club. Would expect that to come, I guess, later once all official confirmation is carried out on this. But fans showing their emotion, expressing their condolence to the family and their shock and sadness at this news, and a very significant football reporter as well saying Liverpool striker Diogo Jota and his brother have passed away. Deepest condolences, support and thoughts are with all those involved, his family and his loved ones.
Yeah, so many on social media, obviously remembering his great talent, but really reflecting just the shock of this. And this being the summer holidays for all the players, he completed his season with Liverpool at the end of May. Then he went on international duty with Portugal, winning the Nations League. This was the rest period between the new season beginning. Pre-season training would be about to begin with Liverpool, obviously getting married with his 3 children there. And what was an incredible period of success on the pitch and personal happiness off the pitch. Now, as we inform of these reports coming from Spain of the car crash that has killed Jota at the age of 28, and so many will be probably thinking of the goals that, as Liverpool fans, they cherish, the goals that have perhaps won games for the team, the goals that have helped Liverpool win the title in the Premier League in the last year. And for so many, it would just be very hard to comprehend the Liverpool fans. And of course, so many youngsters being football fans, fans of Liverpool as well, which will be even more challenging as they are discovering this news as well and are trying to digest it as well to understand one of the stars. So many fans will have Jota's name on their shirts as well, how much he'll be idolised, you know, particularly in Portugal, to see one of their own winning the Premier League, a country that has produced so many talented footballers, Jota playing alongside Cristiano Ronaldo, and having been at European Championships and World Cups with Portugal as well, just cements just his status within the game and within Portugal. And, you know, Portugal is a country where sport dominates. There are daily sports newspapers, so much football coverage in that country that even, you know, in Britain, thinking of that, in Portugal, it's even bigger football in terms of just how much it dominates the conversation. And that's why this news will be so devastating, particularly in Jota's homeland, where he's a player who they would have been pinning so many hopes on heading into the World Cup next summer in North America. But certainly we're still waiting to just discover some more details from the firefighters who are reporting this news via Spanish and Portuguese media, that Jota, at the age of 28, has been killed in this car crash just weeks after his wedding.
Yeah, and Rob, much of the commentary on social media, as well as expressing their shock and sadness, is just reflecting on the sort of the fragility of life. Jota celebrating his wedding alongside his wife and 3 young children just 4 days ago, and now reportedly dead in a car crash alongside his brother. He, of course, played for Liverpool most recently in the Premier League. He played 398 times professionally as a footballer, scored some 136 goals. As I've been saying, he's a very versatile, respected footballer who's able to play in different positions and seen as a very unselfish player. Now, the Portuguese Football Federation have, in the last few minutes, put out a statement in reaction to this news of the death of Diogo Jota, as well as his brother Andre Silva. I'm just going to read it out to you in full. The Portuguese Football Federation and all of Portuguese football, they say, are completely devastated by the deaths of Diogo Jota and Andre Silva this morning in Spain. Much more than an amazing player, with almost 50 international games for the national team, Diogo Jota was an extraordinary person, respected by all teammates and opponents, someone with an infectious joy and a reference to the community itself. On the behalf of Portuguese football, I express my deepest condolence to the family and friends of Diogo Jota and Andre Silva, as well as Liverpool FC and FC Penafiel, the clubs where the players lined up, respectively. The Portuguese Football Federation has already asked UEFA for a minute's silence before any matches this week, before the match of our national team with Spain in the Women's European Championship, that game being played in Switzerland this evening at 8 o'clock. Of course, Spanish women are the World Cup champions. They're playing Portugal today in the Women's Euros later on, and the Portuguese Football Federation asking for there to be a minute's silence at least before that game to mark this loss. Well, the Portuguese Football Federation finish off their statement like this. It's been a great loss of 2 champions. The disappearance of Diogo and Andre Silva represent irreparable losses for Portuguese football, and we will do everything to daily honour their legacy. A statement there from the Portuguese Football Federation revealing their shock, devastation and sadness at the loss of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, who died in a car crash today in the northwest of Spain. Diogo Jota just 4 days after getting married. Former England and Manchester United footballer and Sky Sports presenter Gary Neville has posted on to social media in the last few minutes in response to this, reacting to the news of the death of Diogo Jota. As you can see there, Gary Neville just saying, "This is heartbreaking news on Diogo Jota and his brother. All my love and best wishes to his family." Gary Neville, just one of thousands of people at this stage. There'll be plenty more responding to the news of Diogo Jota's death and alongside his brother in a car crash in the northwest of Spain. Let's bring our sports correspondent Rob Harris back in, who is out in Zurich, actually is in Switzerland, reporting on the European Championships now. And I guess as a major tournament continues, Rob, many of the games now, especially that one tonight between Spain and Portugal, there'll be a lot of feeling ahead of that match and as the game goes on, remembering the loss of Diogo Jota and his brother.
Yes, the Portugal players at the moment will be preparing for that match across in Bern against Spain, their opening match here at the Women's European Championship. There'll be Portuguese fans as well who will be coming into the country. What should be a moment of hope at the start of a tournament for them, instead turning into one of utter shock and devastation as one of the stars of the Portuguese men's team dies. And, Jota so recently having that success in the Nations League campaign, it's not the European Championship, it's a secondary competition played all year round, effectively, between all the European nations. That culminates in a four-nation final. So Portugal had to win their semi-final and then advance through to the final to win that piece of silverware in a penalty shootout. And, for Jota, the fact it came off the back of winning the Premier League title as well with Liverpool, really showing just what a period of success it has been. And now we're getting more of the sort of tributes that are coming in across Portuguese football. Just now, FC Porto have posted that Porto Football Club is in mourning. It is with shock and deep regret that we send our most sincere condolences to the family and friends of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, who was also our player in the youth categories. Rest in peace. And a statement that we're just getting actually now from the civil guard in Zamora. They are saying a road accident occurred at 12:30 a.m. this morning at kilometre 65 of the A52 motorway in the municipality of Kernadilla in Zamora. A vehicle left the road and everything indicates a tyre burst while overtaking. As a result of the accident, the car caught fire and both people were killed. Pending the completion of forensic tests, one of the deceased has been identified as Diogo Jota, a Liverpool FC player, and his brother, Andre Philippe. That is a statement from the civil guard in Zamora that has just come in. So, confirmation from the Spanish authorities that Jota, at the age of 28, was killed in that car crash.
That statement coming in from the civil guard saying that road accident happened at 12:30 a.m. in the morning on the A52 motorway. Diogo Jota, 28, his brother Andre Silva, who was 26, dying in that accident, reportedly from a tyre bursting and the car leaving the road. Our correspondent Emma Birchley is here with us. And Emma, just take us through what we do know so far at this stage on this news that these two stars of football have lost their lives.
Yeah, we know that several calls came into the emergency services in the early hours of this morning, around 20 to 1. Diogo Jota driving on the A52, this near the Portuguese border, but actually in northwest Spain, near Zamora. Reports now about the possibility of a tyre blowout. We know that the car crashed off the road and caught fire and was engulfed in flames. And the emergency services, when they got to that car, unfortunately, the two occupants, Diogo and his brother Andre, so Diogo 28, Andre 26, both of them very sadly had died. So we know as well that the vegetation around that area caught light, but they were managed to deal with that, put that out. And of course now what happens is that there is an investigation to find out what happened, and a tragedy for a family at any time, of course, but just made so much worse by the fact that only a week and a half ago, Diogo got married to his long-term girlfriend. They'd been together since their teens. They had 3 young children together, 2 sons and a young daughter. Got married in Porto, in Portugal, of course, Diogo from Portugal. And now, from a time of real joy, of course, a family in mourning. And there has actually been a statement now from the Portuguese national football team who've said they're devastated by what's happened, adding that Diogo was not only a fantastic player with almost 50 caps for the national team, but also an extraordinary person who was respected by all his teammates and opponents. So, of course, not just his family feeling the loss, his new wife, his children, but fans here in the UK, but in Portugal, and of course all his colleagues and teammates.
Yeah, and sort of the memories of him and the tributes to him and his brother coming in from all over the world, just going through sort of the social media feeds, many people reacting with shock, disbelief that it's happened, and talking about how life changes quite so quickly. As you said, Emma, he just got married 4 days ago, along with his 3 small children. We have pictures of them at their wedding as well, which Diogo Jota put onto his social media in just the last few days. And now, the news that he has died in a car crash. And now, as Emma was saying, we have had a reaction from the Portuguese Football Federation. Let's read it to you again, because it's a powerful statement from a federation that has now lost a key player, as well as that player's brother. And it reads, the Portuguese football are devastated by the loss of Diogo Jota and Andre Silva this morning in Spain. Much more than an amazing player with almost 50 international caps for the national team, Diogo Jota was an extraordinary person, respected by all teammates and opponents, someone with an infectious joy and closeness with the community itself. On the behalf of the Portuguese Football Federation, I express my deepest condolence to the family and friends of Diogo and Andre Silva, as well as to Liverpool FC and Penafiel, the clubs where the players lined up, respectively. Well, the Portuguese Football Federation has already asked UEFA for there to be a minute's silence before the match between the national teams of Spain and Portugal at the Women's European Championship that's being held in Bern at 8 p.m. UK time. They say lost to champs, the disappearance of Diogo and Andre Silva represent irreparable losses for Portuguese football, and they will do everything to daily honour their legacy. The words there of the Portuguese Football Federation responding to the news that a player, Diogo Jota, who's made 49 appearances, scored 14 goals for the national team, has died alongside his brother in a motor vehicle accident in the northwest of Spain. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris is still with us. And Rob, as the Federation have said they want there to be a minute's silence. I think that's the very least that will most likely happen now. There's a major tournament ongoing, but they want there to be a minute's silence at least before Spain and Portugal play one another in the Euros later.
Obviously, thoughts will be foremost with Diogo Jota's family, but for the team, they will be devastated. They will know him. They'll have been around Jota, around the Portuguese camp at various events in Portugal, and now they're preparing for their first game tonight at these Women's Euros. That there'll be complete shock around the team base, and as well as the fans who are arriving here in Switzerland for that match. The fact that last month had been a period of trophy success for Portugal, with Jota being part of that Nations League winning campaign. But what had been a period of joy for Jota, winning the Premier League, winning the Nations League, and then Jota getting married. Now, his life ending at the age of 28 in that car crash in the early hours of the morning in Zamora.